cook the dinner. Just stay out of sight. No, I won't cook for you anymore.
Mom, please don't do this.
This can't be right.
The recipes were always mine.
You never told anyone.
This place belongs to your legacy.
No one owns my worth anymore.
I never thought you'd win.
Lauren Whitaker laughed as she pushed the casserole dish away from the center of the table. "Nobody eats food like this anymore, Marjorie," she said, smiling at Daniel's colleagues as if cruelty were charming. Daniel lowered his eyes and said nothing. Marjorie Cole had cooked for that family through grief, surgery, loneliness, and holidays no one else bothered to plan. But that night, Lauren called her food embarrassing in Marjorie's own dining room. What Lauren did not know was that the recipe she mocked was tied to a sealed restaurant agreement, an old ownership file, and a secret Daniel had never explained. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 months earlier, Marjorie still believed silence could keep a family together. At 69, Marjorie Cole moved more slowly than she used to, but she was not helpless. That was the part Lauren always seemed to forget. Or maybe it was the part she wanted everyone else to forget. Marjorie lived in a white 2-story house outside Columbus, Ohio, the same house she and her late husband, Thomas, had bought when Cole's Sunday kitchen was still alive and full of noise. Back then, the kitchen had never been quiet. There had been trays cooling on the counters, soup simmering before sunrise, and Thomas leaning against the doorway with a towel over one shoulder, telling her she had added too much pepper again. Thomas had been gone for 6 years now. The restaurant had closed 2 years after his funeral, not because it failed, but because Marjorie could not stand walking past his empty office every morning. She sold the equipment, packed away the menu boards, and told herself she was ready for peace. Then came the knee surgery. It was supposed to be simple. A few weeks of recovery, some physical therapy, and a little help from Daniel. Her only son had promised her that she would not be alone. "We've got you, Mom," he had said, standing beside her hospital bed with tired eyes and a paper cup of coffee in his hand. "Lauren and I will handle everything until you're back on your feet." At first, Marjorie believed him. Daniel came by with groceries. Lauren organized the medicine bottles. They drove her to follow-up appointments and helped her up the stairs when the pain was sharp enough to make her breath catch. For a while, Marjorie was grateful. She told herself she was lucky. Some women her age had no one, but help had a strange way of changing shape. By the 2nd month, Lauren had a copy of the house key. By the 3rd, she knew the garage code. By the 4th, she was rearranging Marjorie's pantry because, as she put it, this layout makes no sense for people who actually use the kitchen. Marjorie had almost laughed at that. She had spent 40 years using kitchens. Still, she said nothing. Lauren had a quick smile when guests were around and a sharper voice when they were not. She worked in marketing, dressed like every room might contain a camera, and cared deeply about presentation. Marjorie had admired that once. She had thought Lauren's confidence might be good for Daniel, who had always hated conflict, but confidence and control were not the same thing. The first Sunday dinner after Marjorie could stand without her cane, Lauren arrived carrying flowers and a printed guest list. "I thought we could start hosting again," Lauren said, setting the paper on the counter. "Daniel's team loves casual family-style events. It makes him seem grounded." Marjorie blinked. "Hosting? Just small dinners, nothing stressful." Lauren smiled. "You love cooking anyway." Daniel stood behind her, rubbing the back of his neck. "It might help with work, Mom. People like that personal touch." That was how it began. One dinner became two. Two became every other Sunday. Soon Lauren was inviting Daniel's colleagues, neighbors, and people from committees Marjorie did not belong to. The gatherings happened in Marjorie's house because, according to Lauren, it had old-world charm. But once guests arrived, Lauren behaved as if the house were hers. She adjusted the lighting. She moved framed photos from the mantel. She told Marjorie which tablecloth looked less dated. She corrected the placement of serving spoons. And Marjorie kept cooking. She made chicken pot pie with a golden crust, beef stew with carrots cut thick, peach cobbler the way Thomas had loved it, bubbling at the edges, sweet enough to make a lonely house feel briefly alive again. The guests always ate. They went back for seconds. Some asked for recipes. One of Daniel's co-workers told Marjorie the pot pie reminded him of the kind of meal people remembered years later. Lauren had smiled tightly at that. "Comfort food is having a moment," she said. "Though honestly, I keep telling Marjorie we need to modernize some of this." People chuckled politely. Marjorie had looked down at her hands. Daniel heard it. He had been standing beside the sideboard holding a glass of iced tea. He opened his mouth slightly, then closed it again. That was Daniel's way. He never agreed with Lauren's cruelty out loud. He simply made room for it. The comments got worse slowly enough that Marjorie almost missed the pattern. That was how disrespect worked when it came dressed as advice. Maybe less butter next time. This feels a little heavy for guests. People are trying to be healthier now. My friends loved the nostalgia, though. Nostalgia. The word made Marjorie feel like an old photograph someone kept around for decoration. One Thursday afternoon, Lauren came over without calling. Marjorie was at the kitchen table, sorting old recipe cards into a wooden box Thomas had made years before. Her knee ached from physical therapy and she had a heating pad resting against her leg. Lauren walked in using her key. Marjorie looked up. "I didn't know you were coming." Lauren removed her sunglasses. "Daniel said you'd be home." That bothered Marjorie, but she only nodded. Lauren's eyes moved to the box. "What's all that?" "Old recipes. From the restaurant?" "Some of them." Lauren stepped closer, interest sharpening her face. "You should really let me digitize those. Paper gets lost." Marjorie placed one hand gently over the cards. "They're fine where they are." For half a second, Lauren's smile faded. Then she laughed softly. "Of course. I just thought it might be practical. Daniel said there were old business papers mixed in with your kitchen things." Marjorie went still. Daniel had said that? She looked down at the box. Under the recipe cards was a sealed brown envelope she had not opened since Thomas died. She knew what was inside, at least partly. Restaurant records, old vendor agreements. A few things Thomas had told her to keep safe. "You don't need to worry about those," Marjorie said. Lauren tilted her head. "I'm not worried. I just think at your age it helps to have things organized. At your age." The words landed lightly, but they left a mark. That evening, after Lauren left, Marjorie carried the wooden box upstairs and placed it in the back of her bedroom closet. Then she took out her phone and changed the password Daniel had helped set up after her surgery. It was a small thing, but it was hers. The next Sunday, Lauren hosted another dinner in Marjorie's dining room. There were 6 guests, all adults, all connected to Daniel's company. Lauren wore cream silk and moved through the house as though she were giving a tour of something she had restored. Marjorie spent most of the afternoon in the kitchen. Her knee throbbed, her back hurt, but she still made the chicken pot pie because Daniel had asked for it. She still made peach cobbler because it felt wrong not to. When she carried the casserole to the table, one of the guests smiled. "That smells incredible." Before Marjorie could answer, Lauren reached for the serving spoon and gave a light laugh. "It's very traditional," she said. "Marjorie hasn't quite accepted that people don't eat like this anymore." The table went quiet for just a breath, then someone chuckled. Marjorie felt the heat rise in her face. She looked at Daniel. Just once, she wanted him to say her name like she mattered. Just once, she wanted him to tell his wife that kindness was not something to mock, but Daniel only stared at his plate. Lauren continued, smiling, as she slid the dish slightly away from herself. "Honestly, the only thing she's ever really been good at is feeding people." A few guests laughed nervously. One woman looked down at her napkin. Daniel did not move. Something inside Marjorie shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quieter than anger and colder than sadness. She set the serving towel on the table. "I'll get the cobbler," she said. Her voice sounded calm. That surprised her. In the kitchen, she stood alone beside the counter, listening to the muffled voices from the dining room. Her hands trembled once, then steadied. She looked at the peach cobbler cooling by the window. Thomas's recipe, her recipe. Their life reduced to a joke for people who did not know the first thing about what it had cost. She picked up her phone from the counter and opened the message thread with Lauren. There were weeks of requests there, menu changes, guest counts, reminders, instructions. Not once did Lauren ask if Marjorie felt well enough to cook. Marjorie took screenshots, one after another, then she sent them to her own email. It was not revenge. Not yet. It was memory, proof, a way to stop herself from pretending later that it had not been that bad. When she finally returned to the dining room, she served the cobbler without a word. Nobody noticed that her smile had disappeared. Later that night, after the guests left, Marjorie gathered plates in silence. Daniel stood by the sink, looking ashamed but saying nothing useful. Lauren was in the hallway, speaking softly on the phone, her voice low enough that she thought Marjorie could not hear. "No, it went fine," Lauren said. "She'll do the promotion dinner. Daniel will talk her into it." Marjorie stopped with one hand on the kitchen doorframe. Lauren laughed under her breath. "After the promotion dinner, we won't need her anymore." Marjorie stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. one hand still damp from rinsing plates, the other pressed against the wood frame as if the house itself might steady her. From the hallway, Lauren's voice remained low and smooth, the kind of voice people used when they thought no one important was listening. "She'll do it," Lauren said. "Daniel just has to make her feel needed. That always works." Marjorie's fingers tightened against the doorframe. A pause followed. Lauren must have been listening to whoever was on the other end of the call. Then she laughed again, softer this time. "No, I'm not worried. After the promotion dinner, we won't need her anymore." The words did not land all at once. They seemed to move through the room slowly, touching the sink, the stacked plates, the pie server, the old yellow walls Thomas had painted with his own hands years ago. Then they reached Marjorie. We won't need her anymore. For years she had told herself Lauren was careless with words. Not cruel, just modern. Not ungrateful, just busy. Not controlling, just organized. But that sentence had no softness to hide behind. It had intention in it, planning, calculation. Marjorie stepped back before Lauren could see her. She turned off the faucet and wiped her hands on a towel, though they were already dry. Her heart beat hard, but her face stayed calm. That, at least, she still knew how to do. A woman who had run a restaurant kitchen during Sunday rush could look calm while the whole world burned around her. Daniel came in a few minutes later carrying 2 wine glasses. "Mom," he said quietly, "you okay?" The question might have meant something if he had asked it in the dining room. If he had asked it when Lauren humiliated her. If he had looked at his wife and said enough. Marjorie took the glasses from him. "I'm tired." Daniel glanced toward the hallway. Lauren didn't mean anything by what she said. There it was again. The old sentence in a slightly different coat. Marjorie placed the glasses in the sink one at a time. "Which thing?" He looked confused. "What? Which thing didn't she mean?" Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence between them said more than his excuses ever could. "She jokes when she's nervous," he said finally. Marjorie turned to him. Her knee ached, a dull pulse beneath the joint, but she kept standing. "Was she nervous when she told your guests my food was embarrassing?" Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Mom, please, it was a long night." "Yes," Marjorie said, "it was." He looked relieved, mistaking her quiet for surrender. "We'll talk tomorrow, okay? The promotion dinner is important. Lauren's just under pressure." Marjorie nodded once, not because she agreed, but because she had learned something useful. Daniel still thought this was about a meal. After he and Lauren left, the house became painfully still. Marjorie locked the front door, then stood in the foyer and listened. The old house creaked as the heat kicked on. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe knocked softly behind the wall. It was the same sound that used to annoy Thomas during winter. He would complain about fixing it and then forget the next day. She walked slowly through the rooms, turning off lamps Lauren had turned on, putting back framed photographs Lauren had shifted, straightening a chair that had been moved to create better flow. Every small correction felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. In the dining room, the table still carried the remains of the evening. Crumbs, coffee cups. A linen napkin Lauren had dropped on the floor and stepped over. Marjorie picked it up and held it for a moment. This was her house, not Lauren's backdrop, not Daniel's career tool, not a stage for people who wanted warmth without respecting the woman who created it. Her name was on the deed. Thomas's name had once been there too, until the paperwork changed after his death. She remembered signing those documents at Evelyn Park's office, sitting across from a lawyer who spoke gently because grief had made every sentence feel too loud. The deed was hers, the house was hers, so why did she feel like a guest in it? Upstairs, Marjorie went to her bedroom closet and pulled down the wooden box of recipes. Her hands moved carefully. The box was heavier than it looked. Thomas had made it from walnut, sanding the lid until it felt smooth as glass. On the inside, he had carved a small line she had nearly forgotten. "For the meals that made us." Marjorie sat on the edge of the bed and opened it. Recipe cards filled the top layer, some written in her hand, some in Thomas's blocky print: chicken pot pie, Sunday beef roast, peach cobbler, buttermilk biscuits, apple crumb cake. Underneath them lay folded menus from Cole's Sunday kitchen and several envelopes she had not touched in years. She did not open the sealed brown envelope yet. Not fully. She only lifted it and saw Thomas's handwriting across the front. "Business papers. Keep safe." Her throat tightened. Thomas had trusted paper. He trusted signatures, dates, copies, clear agreements. Marjorie had always trusted people more. Maybe that was where she had gone wrong. A soft buzz came from her phone, a text from Lauren. "Great dinner tonight. Daniel will call you tomorrow about the promotion event. We'll need to plan a more polished menu this time." Marjorie stared at the message. "Not thank you. Not are you feeling okay? Not I'm sorry. We'll need." She took a screenshot of the text. Then she opened a new folder in her email and named it Dinner Requests. She forwarded the screenshot there along with the one she had taken earlier. Her hands trembled only once, then she changed her phone passcode again. The next morning, Daniel called at 8:17. Marjorie was already awake. Pain had pulled her out of sleep before sunrise. She had taken her medication, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with the wooden box in front of her. Sunlight fell across the worn recipe cards, turning the ink soft brown. She let Daniel's first call go to voicemail. That was new. The second call came 3 minutes later. She answered. "Mom?" Daniel sounded strained. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, you didn't pick up. I was busy." A pause. Not long, but enough to show that he was not used to her having an answer that did not include an apology. "Oh," he said. "Well, Lauren wanted me to ask about next month." "Next month?" "The dinner. The promotion dinner. I told you about it. You said Lauren was under pressure. You didn't ask me anything." Daniel sighed. "Mom, don't do that." "Do what?" "Make this harder than it needs to be." Marjorie looked at the recipe card beneath her fingers. Thomas's chicken pot pie, the same dish Lauren mocked and requested whenever she needed to impress someone. "I haven't agreed to cook for that dinner," Marjorie said. Silence. This silence was different from the ones at the table. It was sharper, more startled. "But you will, right?" Daniel asked. There it was, not a request, an assumption. Marjorie closed the lid of the wooden box. "I'll think about it." "Mom, this matters. So do I." The words left her mouth before she had planned them. Once spoken, they filled the kitchen with a strange, unfamiliar strength. Daniel did not answer right away. When he did, his voice had softened, but not enough. "Nobody said you don't matter." "No," Marjorie said. "You just keep proving it." She ended the call before he could explain it away. For several minutes, she sat very still. Her chest felt tight. She had never hung up on Daniel before, not when he forgot her birthday dinner 2 years earlier. Not when Lauren moved her serving dishes without asking. Not even after the surgery, when he missed 2 therapy appointments because Lauren needed the car for a meeting. But this time, she had done it. She carried the wooden box downstairs and placed it in the small office at the back of the house, the room Thomas had once used for restaurant bills. The space still smelled faintly of paper and old wood. His filing cabinet stood against the wall, locked. Marjorie opened the top drawer of her desk and found the little ring of keys she had not used in years. The brass filing cabinet key was still there. She slid it into the lock. Inside were property tax records, insurance papers, old bank statements, and folders labeled in Thomas's careful handwriting. She did not search deeply, not yet, but she pulled out the folder marked House and the folder marked Cole's Sunday Kitchen. Then she placed both inside a canvas tote bag. At the bottom of the drawer, behind a stack of old envelopes, she found something else, a spare key to her own back door. For a moment, she frowned. It had a small paper tag tied to it in Lauren's handwriting, emergency copy. Marjorie had never given Lauren permission to make that. She picked it up slowly. The metal felt cold in her palm. Then she walked to the kitchen, opened the junk drawer, and found the note card from the locksmith Thomas had used for decades. The company was still in business. She checked on her phone, then saved the number. That afternoon, Lauren arrived without knocking. Marjorie heard the back door open, then Lauren's voice calling from the mudroom. "Marjorie? It's me." Marjorie stood in the kitchen, one hand resting on the counter. Her tote bag of papers sat hidden behind the pantry door. Lauren entered carrying a tablet and a coffee she had bought for herself. "Oh, good, you're dressed," Lauren said. "Daniel said you were being sensitive this morning, so I thought I'd come by and smooth things over." Marjorie looked at her. "You used the back door." Lauren blinked. "Yes, with a key I didn't give you." For once, Lauren did not answer immediately. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Then she smiled. "Daniel gave it to me, for emergencies." Marjorie's face stayed calm. "Daniel doesn't own this house." The smile slipped just enough for Marjorie to see what lived underneath it. Lauren set her tablet on the counter. "I think we need to be careful about tone." "Daniel is worried about you." "Worried how?" Lauren's eyes moved quickly around the kitchen, touching the old cabinets, the recipe stand, the cooling rack by the stove. "You've been through surgery. You're alone here." Sometimes people don't notice when they start becoming overwhelmed. There it was. Not an insult, something more dangerous, a suggestion. Marjorie understood then that Lauren's control was not only in the dinners or the comments or the keys. It was in the way she shaped the story before anyone else could tell it. Marjorie picked up Lauren's key from the counter and held it out. "I'll take that back." Lauren stared at her. For a second, neither woman moved. Then Lauren gave a small laugh, but it sounded thinner than before. "Marjorie, don't be dramatic." Marjorie kept her hand extended. "The key." Lauren's jaw tightened. Slowly, she reached into her purse and pulled out a second copy. Marjorie's stomach went cold. She had thought there was one. Lauren placed both keys in Marjorie's palm, then leaned closer and lowered her voice. You know, Daniel only wants to protect you. If you make everything difficult, people may start asking whether you should be handling all of this alone. Marjorie closed her fingers around the keys. After Lauren left, Marjorie locked the back door and stood there for a long time. Then she took out her phone, called the locksmith, and scheduled the earliest appointment available. Only after the call ended did she look down at the 2 keys in her hand and notice something scratched into one of the tags. Not back door, not emergency. It said in Lauren's neat handwriting, house access until transfer. Marjorie kept the 2 keys on the kitchen counter long after Lauren left. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt peaceful. It felt watched. The little paper tag sat beside her coffee cup, small and harmless looking, yet the words on it made her stomach tighten every time she glanced down. House access until transfer. Transfer of what? She did not touch the tag again until the locksmith arrived the next morning. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s named Paul, wearing a work jacket with his company logo sewn across the chest. Marjorie remembered his father. Thomas had trusted that family with every lock at the restaurant, from the front door to the office safe. Paul looked at the 2 copied keys on the counter and frowned. These were made recently, he said. How recently? He turned one key beneath the light. Hard to say exactly, but this one wasn't cut by us. Marjorie nodded slowly. Can you change the back door and garage entry today? Yes, Mom, and I want a new code for the keypad. Not one connected to the old system. Paul looked at her face, then stopped asking questions. I can do that. While he worked, Marjorie sat in Thomas's old office with the door half closed. The sound of tools drifted in from the mudroom. It should have made her nervous. Instead, it steadied her. For the first time in months, something in the house was changing because she had chosen it. She opened her email and created another folder. House access. Into it, she uploaded a photo of both copied keys, the tag in Lauren's handwriting, and the invoice from the locksmith once Paul sent it. She did not know yet what any of it meant legally. She only knew she wanted records. Thomas had always said people forgot conversations when they became inconvenient, but paper had a better memory. By noon, every exterior lock Lauren could use had been changed. Paul handed Marjorie 2 new keys and a printed receipt. Only 2 copies, he said, both in your hand. Thank you. He hesitated at the door. Mrs. Cole, if somebody shows up saying they're allowed in, unless you tell me directly, I won't cut another key. The kindness in that simple sentence nearly broke her. I appreciate that. After he left, Marjorie placed 1 key on her own ring and taped the second inside an envelope marked spare. Then she took the canvas tote from behind the pantry door and brought it to the dining room table. The folders lay inside, heavier now than they had been yesterday. House. Cole's Sunday kitchen. She opened the house folder first because that was the one she understood. Deed copies, insurance policies, property tax records, mortgage satisfaction letter from 12 years earlier. The house was paid off. Her name was clear. No Daniel, no Lauren, no transfer. That should have comforted her. Instead, the word on Lauren's tag kept pressing at her thoughts. Until transfer. She was reading the insurance renewal when her phone rang. Daniel. She let it ring twice before answering. Mom, he said, and she could hear irritation before he tried to hide it. Did you change the locks? Marjorie looked toward the back door. Yes. A silence followed. Then Daniel exhaled hard. Why would you do that without telling me? Because it's my house. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. He lowered his voice. Lauren is upset. She stopped by to bring you the dinner schedule, and her key didn't work. Marjorie closed her eyes for a moment. Of course. Lauren had tested the door already. She was not invited over, Marjorie said. She was trying to help. She entered my house yesterday with 2 keys I didn't authorize. Mom, one of those was for emergencies. And the other? Daniel did not answer. The silence was different now. Not confused. Careful. Marjorie sat straighter. Did you know she had 2? She handles a lot of practical things, he said. You know how she is. Yes, Marjorie said. I'm beginning to. Daniel's voice tightened. You're making this into something ugly. No, I'm noticing that something ugly was already here. He's quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, he sounded tired, and that old maternal instinct tugged at her. Mom, please don't start a war over a key. Marjorie looked at the folder marked house. Daniel, wars don't start when someone changes a lock. They start when someone forgets whose door it is. He did not like that. She could hear it in the way he breathed. Lauren is going to email you the dinner plan, he said finally. Please just read it before deciding anything. I haven't agreed to cook. I know what you said. No, Daniel. You heard what I said. I'm not sure you understood it." He ended the call without saying goodbye. Marjorie stared at the phone. The pain in her chest was not surprise. It was disappointment settling into a familiar place. She had expected Lauren to be angry. She had not expected Daniel to sound more offended by a changed lock than by his wife entering without permission. An hour later, the email arrived. Subject: promotion dinner schedule. Lauren's message was brisk and polished, as though nothing had happened. Marjorie, attaching the working plan so we can avoid confusion going forward. Daniel's promotion dinner is tentatively set for the 24th. We will need appetizers ready by 6, dinner by 7:15, and dessert plated by 8:30. I've included notes for flow and guest experience. Please review today so we can make adjustments. Marjorie opened the attachment. It was not a request, it was an assignment. The first page listed menu items: chicken pot pie but deconstructed, buttermilk biscuits but miniature refined, peach cobbler but served in individual glass cups, not rustic. The next page listed shopping responsibilities, prep times, and serving instructions. Then she reached the third page. Kitchen presence should remain limited during guest hours. Marjorie can assist with final plating before guests arrive, then remain in kitchen or back room as needed. Marjorie read the sentence twice. Back room, in her own house. She felt her face grow warm, but her hands were steady. She took screenshots of each page. Then she downloaded the full file and saved it in the dinner requests folder. She forwarded it to herself, then printed a copy on the small printer in Thomas' office. As the pages slid out one by one, she realized something important. Lauren had put it in writing: the entitlement, the instructions, the expectation that Marjorie would provide labor while disappearing from view. That changed the weight of things. At 4 o'clock, Lauren texted, "Did you see the schedule? Need your confirmation." Marjorie typed one sentence. "I received it." Lauren replied almost immediately. "Great, we'll discuss changes Sunday." Marjorie looked at the phone for a long moment. Then she typed again, "There will be no Sunday dinner this week." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Excuse me?" Marjorie's pulse quickened, but she did not delete the words. "I am not hosting this Sunday." The response came fast. "Daniel didn't mention that." Marjorie almost smiled, though there was no humor in it. "Daniel does not schedule my house." For several minutes, Lauren did not reply. When she finally did, her message was short. "We need to talk in person." Marjorie did not answer. That evening, she heated soup for herself and ate at the kitchen table. No guests, no performance. No Lauren adjusting the flowers or correcting the napkins. The quiet felt strange at first, almost too large. Then it began to feel like air. After dinner, Marjorie returned to Thomas's office and opened the Cole's Sunday kitchen folder. The top papers were ordinary: old menus, vendor lists, closing documents, tax forms from years ago. Beneath them was a thin packet held together by a rusting paperclip. At the top was a cover page from a local business attorney dated several years before Thomas died. Trademark and recipe ownership preservation. Marjorie frowned. She did not remember this exact packet, though she remembered Thomas talking about protecting the name. At the time, she had thought he was being overly cautious. Their restaurant was small, beloved but not famous. Who would try to take recipes from a neighborhood kitchen? She turned the page. There were notes in Thomas's handwriting in the margins. "Do not transfer without M's approval. Must remain hers if I'm gone." Marjorie's throat tightened. She read those words again and again until the ink blurred. Then, halfway through the packet, she found a photocopied page that did not match the others. The paper was newer, cleaner. At the top was a printed title: Preliminary Brand Transfer Discussion. Below that, 3 names appeared: Marjorie Cole, Daniel Cole, Lauren Whitaker Cole. Marjorie stared at Lauren's name. Her hands went cold. Near the bottom of the page was a blank signature line beside Marjorie's typed name. Someone had circled it in blue ink and written a note beside it: "Can be signed after recovery appointment." She trusts Daniel. Marjorie did not move for several seconds. The paper lay flat on Thomas's old desk, harmless in appearance, but the note beside her typed name made her hands feel numb. "Can be signed after recovery appointment." She trusts Daniel. She read it once, then again. The handwriting was not Daniel's. It was too neat, too narrow, too controlled. Lauren's handwriting had always looked like it belonged on invitations and marketing boards. Even here, beside a blank signature line, it looked polished. Marjorie reached for the chair and sat before her knee gave out. The room seemed smaller than it had a moment ago. The cabinet, the old lamp, the file folders, the house around her. All of it suddenly felt less secure, as if someone had been walking through her life with a measuring tape while she was too tired to notice. She did not understand the full meaning of the document, Preliminary brand transfer discussion was vague enough to hide behind. It was not a signed contract. It did not prove anyone had stolen anything. But the words after recovery appointment made her stomach twist. They had been talking about her while she was healing, while she was taking pain medication, while Daniel drove her to physical therapy and Lauren stood in her kitchen counting pills into a plastic organizer. Marjorie took out her phone and photographed every page of the packet. She made sure the date on the cover page was visible. She photographed Lauren's note twice, once close and once with the full document in frame. Then she scanned the pages using an app Daniel had installed for her after surgery. He had taught her how to scan documents so she could send insurance paperwork. The irony nearly made her laugh. She uploaded the scans to her email folder, then renamed the file, Brand Transfer Packet Found in Thomas' office. After that, she printed a second copy and placed the original back in the folder exactly where she had found it. If anyone came looking, she did not want them to know she had seen it. That decision steadied her. Silence could be weakness, but careful silence could also be preparation. The next morning, Marjorie drove to First County Bank before Daniel or Lauren could call. She wore a navy coat, comfortable shoes, and the pearl earrings Thomas had given her on their 35th anniversary. Her knee protested when she stepped out of the car, but she kept walking. Inside the bank, everything smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and coffee. A young teller asked if she needed help. Marjorie requested a private meeting with someone about safe deposit boxes and account access. The teller's smile shifted into professional concern. Within 10 minutes, Marjorie sat across from a branch manager named Helen Price, a woman in her early 60s with silver-streaked hair and steady eyes. "What can I help you with, Mrs. Cole?" Marjorie placed her driver's license on the desk. "I want to confirm who has access to my accounts and whether anyone has tried to request information recently." Helen nodded. "We can review that. It took time. Passwords, security questions, printed forms." Marjorie did not mind. The slowness comforted her. Real protections were supposed to take steps. They were not supposed to be handled through hurried conversations at kitchen counters. Helen reviewed the accounts one by one. Marjorie's checking, her savings, a small business account that had once belonged to Cole's Sunday Kitchen and now sat mostly unused except for occasional tax-related deposits and old royalty checks from a local cookbook that had featured 2 of her recipes years ago. "No joint owners," Helen said. "No authorized signers currently listed." Marjorie exhaled, but Helen added, looking at the screen more closely, there was an inquiry noted 6 weeks ago. Marjorie's fingers tightened around her purse strap. "What kind of inquiry?" "Someone called asking what would be required to add a financial power of attorney to your profile." The room seemed to lose warmth. "Who called?" Helen hesitated. "The note says the caller identified himself as your son, Daniel Cole. We did not release account details. It was general information only." Marjorie looked down at her hands. Daniel had never mentioned that call. Helen's voice softened. "A general inquiry is not illegal, Mrs. Cole. Adult children often ask about planning for parents. But if you have concerns, we can add extra verification requirements to your accounts." "Yes," Marjorie said immediately. "Please do that." They added a verbal password. They removed online recovery options tied to Daniel's old email, which had been listed years ago after Thomas died. Marjorie changed her online banking password from Helen's office computer and set alerts for logins, transfers, and profile changes. Then she opened a safe deposit box. Into it, she placed copies of the house deed, insurance papers, Thomas's business packet, the photocopied brand transfer page, the 2 unauthorized keys, and the tag marked house access until transfer sealed inside a small plastic envelope. Helen watched her with quiet seriousness. "Do you have an attorney, Mrs. Cole?" Marjorie closed the metal box. "I used to. It may be worth calling her." Marjorie nodded. "I think so, too." By the time she returned home, Daniel had called 4 times. Lauren had texted twice. "Daniel, Mom, why is Lauren locked out?" "Daniel, this is getting ridiculous." "Lauren, we need to finalize the dinner schedule." "Lauren, please don't create drama around Daniel's career." Marjorie took screenshots. Then she placed the phone face down on the kitchen table and made tea. The call she dreaded most came at 3:12. Daniel again. This time she answered. "Mom," he said sharply. "Where were you?" The question hit her wrong. Not because of the words, but because of the entitlement behind them. "Out," she said. "Lauren went by to check on you and couldn't get in. You're not answering messages. Do you understand why that worries us?" Marjorie stared at the steam rising from her cup. If Lauren was worried, she could have knocked. She did. And when I didn't answer, she should have left. Daniel made a frustrated sound. "You changed the locks, you canceled Sunday dinner, and now you're acting like we're the problem." Marjorie's voice stayed even. I canceled one dinner. That dinner matters. No, the promotion dinner matters to Lauren. My house matters to me. A silence followed. Then Daniel said, Mom, you're making Lauren feel unwelcome. Marjorie almost smiled from the pain of it. Lauren had stood in her kitchen with 2 unauthorized keys and a transfer note somewhere in the shadows, yet Daniel was worried about Lauren feeling unwelcome. She is unwelcome when she lets herself into my home without permission, Marjorie said. That's not fair. What part? She helped you after surgery. There it was. The debt. The invisible bill being placed on the table. Marjorie closed her eyes. She remembered Lauren handing her pills, Lauren driving her twice, Lauren calling the physical therapist once. She also remembered weeks of meals she had cooked once she could stand, laundry she had folded because Lauren said bending hurt her back, and checks she had written for family dinners Lauren treated as her own events. Help is not ownership, Marjorie said. Daniel went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. Did you go to the bank today? Marjorie froze. She had not told him. Slowly, she opened her eyes. Why would you ask that? Another silence. Shorter this time. Worse. I got an alert, he said. What alert? I still had access to some old account notifications. From when Dad died, I forgot they were connected. Marjorie's stomach tightened. She had just removed that access. Helen had been right to do it. I changed my account security, Marjorie said. You didn't need to do that behind my back. Behind his back. The phrase revealed more than he intended. These are my accounts, Daniel. I know that. Then say it like you know it. He did not. Marjorie set the tea down carefully. Her hands were steady now. The shock was passing, replaced by something firmer. Daniel had known about the bank change almost immediately. Daniel had asked about power of attorney. Daniel's wife had a key tagged until transfer. None of it proved the full story. But it was enough to show her that the ground under her family was not solid. I need space, she said. Mom, I mean it. No more coming over without calling. No more schedules sent as if I work for you. No more discussions about my house, my accounts, or my cooking unless I agree to them. You're overreacting. No, Marjorie said. I'm late. She ended the call. For the first time all day, the house felt still in a good way. Marjorie carried her tea into Thomas's office and sat at his desk. Then she opened the bottom drawer and pulled out an old address book. Evelyn Park's number was still written under legal, in Thomas's handwriting. Marjorie called before she could lose courage. The receptionist said Evelyn had retired from daily practice but still took select estate matters. Marjorie left a message with her name, her number, and one careful sentence. I found documents I don't understand, and I need to know whether my signature or property rights are at risk. After hanging up, she felt tired enough to sleep for a week. Instead, she opened the Cole's Sunday kitchen folder again. She had meant only to place it in a neat stack for Evelyn. But as she lifted the remaining papers, a smaller envelope slid out from between 2 old tax forms. It had been sealed once, then opened. Across the front, Thomas had written, "For Marjorie only, if anyone tries to sell what we built." Inside was a single page, folded around a photocopy of a letter from a business attorney. Marjorie unfolded it slowly. The first line made her breath catch. Under no circumstances should Daniel be permitted to negotiate the Cole's Sunday kitchen name without Marjorie's written consent. Marjorie held the page so carefully that it almost seemed fragile enough to tear from breathing. Thomas's warning sat at the top in plain language, not emotional, not dramatic, just clear. Under no circumstances should Daniel be permitted to negotiate the Cole's Sunday kitchen name without Marjorie's written consent. She read the line until the meaning settled into her bones. Thomas had seen something before he died. Maybe not the full shape of it, maybe not Lauren, but he had known enough to protect what they had built. The letter attached beneath his note came from a small business attorney named Walter Hensley. Marjorie remembered the name faintly. He had visited the restaurant twice years ago and once sat in the corner booth with Thomas, drinking black coffee while Marjorie worked the lunch rush. At the time, she had assumed they were discussing tax matters. The letter mentioned trademarks, recipe ownership, and licensing precautions. It said that Cole's Sunday Kitchen had regional goodwill and that the name, menu language, and signature recipes should not be assigned or licensed without the consent of both Thomas and Marjorie Cole. After Thomas's death, control was to remain with Marjorie unless she executed a written transfer. Marjorie placed the page on the desk and pressed both hands flat beside it. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the old lamp. Her first feeling was not anger, it was grief. Thomas had tried to protect her from a future she had not wanted to imagine, and she had been too heartbroken to look closely at what he left behind. Her phone rang before she could fold the letter. Evelyn Park's office, Marjorie answered with a careful breath. Mrs. Cole, the receptionist said. Miss Park can speak with you tomorrow morning at 10, if that works. Yes, Marjorie said quickly. That works. Would you like to bring documents? Marjorie looked at the paper on the desk. Yes, several. After the call, she made another scan of Thomas's warning and saved it in the same folder as the transfer packet. Then she placed the original in a new envelope, wrote Evelyn Park across the front, and set it inside her tote bag. The old Marjorie might have waited for Daniel to explain. The new Marjorie wanted copies before anyone had a chance to explain anything away. That evening, Daniel did not call again. Lauren did. Marjorie let it go to voicemail. A minute later, her phone buzzed with a message. We need to stop this nonsense before Daniel gets hurt professionally. Marjorie stared at the screen. Not before you get hurt. Not before this family gets hurt. Daniel, his career, his future, his reputation. Lauren had a talent for making every demand sound like a rescue mission. Marjorie took a screenshot. Another message arrived. You're putting him in a terrible position over a few comments and some dinner plans. Marjorie saved that too. Then came the third. If you refuse to help, we may need to rethink how involved you are in family events going forward. The threat was polite. That made it colder. Marjorie did not have grandchildren or minor children to be used against her, but Lauren knew isolation had its own power. Family events meant holidays, birthdays for adult relatives, anniversaries, gatherings where Marjorie could still pretend she belonged. For a moment, her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to write, I heard what you said. She wanted to ask what transfer meant. She wanted to tell Lauren that Thomas had left warnings behind. Instead, she wrote nothing. Not because she was afraid, because Lauren did not deserve a preview. The next morning, Marjorie drove to Evelyn Park's office with the tote bag buckled into the passenger seat like something living. Evelyn's office sat in a brick building near downtown Columbus above a dental practice and a tax preparer. It had not changed much since Thomas died. Same brass nameplate, same narrow hallway, same faint smell of copier toner and old books. Evelyn Park was older now, with shorter gray hair and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She greeted Marjorie at the door herself. Marjorie, she said softly. I'm sorry we're meeting like this, Marjorie nodded. If she spoke too soon, she feared her voice would crack. Inside the office, Evelyn listened without interrupting as Marjorie laid out the pieces, the unauthorized keys, the tag marked house access until transfer, the dinner schedule requiring Marjorie to remain in the kitchen, the bank inquiry about power of attorney, the preliminary brand transfer page with Lauren's note, Thomas's warning. Evelyn's expression changed slightly with each document. But by the time she reached Thomas's letter, her mouth had tightened. This is serious, Evelyn said. Marjorie felt the words in her stomach. Does it prove anything? It proves concern. It proves a pattern. It does not by itself prove fraud or coercion. Evelyn looked up. But it is enough that I would advise you not to sign anything Daniel or Lauren gives you. Nothing related to the house, the restaurant name, recipes, estate planning, banking access, or medical decision-making until I review it. I don't have any intention of signing. Good. Evelyn removed a legal pad from the side of her desk. We need to build a timeline. Dates, messages, who had keys, who requested access, who knew what and when. If this ever becomes a dispute, a clean timeline matters. Marjorie nodded. I started saving screenshots. That was smart. The praise was simple, but it warmed something bruised inside her. For weeks, Daniel and Lauren had treated her caution like irrational behavior. Evelyn treated it like evidence. They spent nearly an hour going through details. Marjorie gave Evelyn copies, not originals. She explained the dinner, the comments, Lauren's control over her home, and Daniel's strange question about the bank. Evelyn asked practical questions. Did Marjorie have a current will? Did anyone hold power of attorney? Did Daniel have access to online accounts? Was there any business entity still active under Cole's Sunday Kitchen? The last question made Marjorie pause. I don't know, she admitted. I thought everything was closed. Evelyn wrote something down. We'll check the Ohio Secretary of State business records. We'll also look for trademark filings. If someone tried to revive, assign, or license the name, there may be a trail. Marjorie looked toward the window. Cars moved through the street below, ordinary and unaware. Do you think Daniel knew? Evelyn did not answer quickly. I think you should prepare yourself for the possibility that he knew more than he has told you. That hurt more than the legal language. By the time Marjorie left, she had a plan. Evelyn would review public records and old estate documents. Marjorie would continue saving communications, keep the originals secured, and avoid being alone with Lauren during any discussion about papers. If Daniel wanted to talk, Evelyn suggested Marjorie keep it written or have a witness present. Outside, Marjorie sat in her car for several minutes before starting the engine. She did not feel victorious. She felt older, but she also felt less alone. On the way home, she stopped at a grocery store for milk and coffee. She had just turned into the produce aisle when a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Marjorie Cole?" She turned slowly. The man standing near the apples was tall, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. It took her a second to place the face beneath the years. "Samuel Grant?" His smile appeared before anything else. "I was hoping you'd remember me. How could I forget the man who ordered pot roast every Friday for 10 years? Samuel laughed, and the sound pulled a memory from a better time. He had been one of Cole's Sunday Kitchen's most loyal customers, back when his contracting business was still small and Thomas was alive. He had always tipped the waitresses too much and argued that Marjorie's peach cobbler should have been illegal. They exchanged the careful pleasantries of people who had both survived. Years they did not want to explain. Samuel asked about Thomas, then apologized when he realized how awkward that was. Marjorie told him it was all right, then his eyes sharpened with genuine interest. "Do you still cook?" Marjorie almost gave the answer Lauren had trained into her, a small laugh, a dismissal, a joke about old recipes. Instead, she said, "Yes, good," Samuel said, "because people still talk about your food." The words hit her harder than she expected. That was a long time ago. "No, it wasn't," he said. "Not to people who remember how your place made them feel." Marjorie looked down at the apples, blinking once. She did not want to cry in the grocery store. Samuel seemed to sense that and changed his tone. "Actually, I'm glad I ran into you. I've been trying to find a way to contact you." "Me?" "Yes, I'm involved in a restaurant project. Comfort food, regional history, real recipes, not imitation nostalgia." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. "The place is called the Sunday Table." Marjorie stared at the card. Sunday. The word seemed to follow her everywhere now. "Sunday dinners, Sunday kitchen, Sunday table," Samuel continued. "I wanted to ask whether you still had any of the original Cole's recipes. Not to take them, to talk properly." The word properly mattered. Before Marjorie could answer, her phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced down. A text from Daniel. "Mom, Lauren says you went to see a lawyer. Please tell me that isn't true." Marjorie's fingers closed around Samuel's business card. For the first time that week, someone was asking for her recipes with respect. At the same moment, her son was asking why she had dared to protect herself. Marjorie stood in the produce aisle with Samuel Grant's card in one hand and Daniel's message glowing on her phone in the other. "Mom, Lauren says you went to see a lawyer. Please tell me that isn't true." The apples in front of her were stacked in neat red pyramids, shining beneath the store lights. Everything around her looked ordinary. A woman compared lettuce nearby. A clerk pushed a cart of onions past the end of the aisle. Somewhere near the bakery, someone laughed. But Marjorie felt as if a curtain had been pulled back. Daniel had not asked if she was all right. He had not asked why she felt the need to speak with Evelyn. He had not asked what she had found. His first concern was that she had dared to seek help outside the family. Samuel watched her expression carefully. Bad timing? Marjorie locked the phone without answering Daniel. Family timing. Samuel nodded as if that explained more than it should have. "I don't want to intrude, you're not." He held up both hands gently. "Then I'll say this once. If someone is making you feel like you have to defend your own name, that usually means there's something worth protecting." The words settled beside the ones Evelyn had spoken. Timeline, records, do not sign. Marjorie slipped his card into her purse. "I may call you, I hope you do," Samuel said. "And Marjorie, I meant what I said. If we talk about your recipes, it will be with paperwork, respect, and whatever attorney you trust." That sentence nearly brought tears to her eyes. Not because it was grand, but because it was basic. Permission, respect, clarity. Things her own son and daughter-in-law had begun treating as obstacles. When Marjorie got home, Daniel's car was in the driveway. She stopped at the curb for a moment, both hands gripping the steering wheel. Her first instinct was to keep driving. Not from fear, but exhaustion. She had spent the morning gathering courage, and now her son was sitting outside her house, as if he still had a right to demand explanations from her. Daniel climbed out before she opened her door. "Mom," he said, "we need to talk." Marjorie got out slowly, careful with her knee. "You should have called before coming." "I did." "You didn't answer." "That was also an answer." He looked away, jaw tight. "Lauren is upset." Marjorie walked toward the porch. "Lauren seems to be upset often. She said you're making accusations." "I haven't accused anyone. You went to a lawyer." Marjorie unlocked her front door and turned to face him before stepping inside. "Yes." Daniel's face changed. Hurt first, then anger. "Why would you do that?" "Because I found documents I don't understand." "What documents?" Marjorie studied him. His shoulders were tense, but his eyes flickered too quickly. Not confused enough. Not innocent enough. She remembered Evelyn's warning to keep discussions controlled. "I'm not discussing them in the doorway," she said. Daniel followed her inside, but he stopped short when the door closed behind him. The new lock clicked. He heard it. She saw him hear it. In the kitchen, he stood near the counter where Lauren had spread her dinner schedule days earlier. Marjorie did not offer coffee. The omission felt small, almost rude, and strangely necessary. Daniel looked around the kitchen. "Mom, this is getting out of hand." "What is?" "All of this. Locks, banks. Screenshots, probably." Marjorie's eyes lifted. "Who said anything about screenshots?" His mouth tightened. There it was again. Another small crack. "Lauren said you've been acting suspicious," he said quickly. "That's all." "Suspicious," Marjorie repeated. "For protecting my own house? For acting like we're trying to hurt you?" Marjorie looked at her son for a long moment. She saw the man he was now, tired, defensive, trained to step between Lauren and consequences. But beneath that, she still saw the person who used to call her when Thomas's birthday came around because neither of them wanted to be alone with the memory. That was what made it hurt. Cruel strangers were simple. A disappointing son was not. "I found a page about a brand transfer," she said carefully. Daniel went still. She watched his face before she watched anything else. His surprise came too late. "What kind of brand transfer?" he asked. "Cole's Sunday Kitchen." He rubbed the back of his neck. That was nothing. Marjorie's pulse slowed, not because she was calm, but because the words confirmed he knew the subject. "Nothing usually doesn't have my typed name on it." Daniel sighed. "Mom, that was years ago. Lauren knew someone in branding who thought the name might have value. We talked about whether it was worth exploring. That's all." "We?" She was trying to help. "Help who?" He flinched slightly. Marjorie let the silence sit between them. Daniel recovered. "You were recovering. You were overwhelmed." "I was trying to keep opportunities from slipping away." "Opportunities for whom?" she asked. He looked frustrated now. "For the family." There it was. The family. The word people used when they wanted one person to carry the cost for everyone else. "Did you ask me?" "You weren't in the right state to deal with business details." Marjorie felt something cold pass through her chest. "I was recovering from knee surgery, Daniel. I was not incompetent." "I didn't say that." "No, but you let other people treat me that way." His face flushed. "That's unfair. So is finding my name on papers I never saw." He looked toward the window. Outside, the afternoon light fell across the backyard where Thomas had once grown basil in raised beds. Daniel had helped build those beds after his father died, back when grief made him gentle. Now he would not even meet her eyes. "I never signed anything for you," he said. Marjorie heard the careful wording. "For me," she said. "Did you send emails for me?" His jaw tightened again. "Daniel." "It was preliminary," he said. "A few messages. Nothing binding." "Who gave you permission?" "I'm your son. That is not permission." The words struck him harder than she expected. For a second, his face looked almost wounded, as if motherhood itself should have served as a blank check. Marjorie hated that part of herself, still wanted to comfort him. Instead, she held steady. Daniel leaned both hands on the back of a kitchen chair. Lauren thought if the name could be revived, it might help everyone. "You weren't doing anything with it." Marjorie's voice dropped. "It was not abandoned just because I was grieving." He looked up. That landed. For the first time since he arrived, Daniel seemed to see her, not as a problem to manage, not as an obstacle to Lauren's plan, as a woman standing in the kitchen where she had rebuilt her life after burying his father. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His expression closed again. "Lauren wants me to bring you the revised dinner paperwork," he said. Marjorie almost could not believe him. After everything, he still had the nerve to say dinner paperwork. "No." He blinked. "No what?" "I'm not signing anything. I'm not agreeing to any dinner plan. I'm not discussing the restaurant name without Evelyn present." "Mom, and I want copies of every email you sent about Cole's Sunday Kitchen." Daniel stared at her. "That's not necessary. It is to me." His voice hardened. "You're letting a lawyer turn this family into a legal issue." "No," Marjorie said. "This became a legal issue when my name appeared on a transfer discussion I didn't authorize." He had no answer for that. The front door opened. Both of them turned. Lauren stepped into the hallway, holding a slim folder in one hand. For one breath, all three of them stood motionless. Then Marjorie understood. Daniel still had his old key to the front door, but she had changed that lock. He must have let Lauren in when he arrived, or he had opened the door for her while Marjorie was in the kitchen. Either way, Lauren was now inside without Marjorie's permission. Lauren's smile was tight. "I think we all need to calm down." Marjorie looked from Lauren to Daniel. "You brought her here?" Daniel looked guilty. "She was waiting in the car." Lauren walked into the kitchen as if the accusation meant nothing. She set the folder on the table. Marjorie, this paranoia has to stop. Daniel is under enough pressure without you inventing betrayal over old papers you don't understand. Marjorie's face stayed still, but the insult found its mark. Papers you don't understand. Old. Confused. Overwhelmed. The same story, polished and repeated until other people might start believing it. "What's in the folder?" Marjorie asked. Lauren brightened just slightly, as if pleased to return to control. A simple consent form for the promotion dinner. Nothing legal, just menu approval and permission to reference Cole's Sunday Kitchen as inspiration. That's all. Marjorie did not touch it. Lauren slid it closer. It would help Daniel. Marjorie looked at her son. "Did you read it?" Daniel hesitated. That was answer enough. Marjorie picked up the folder, opened it, and scanned the first page without signing. The title was harmless. Event Heritage Menu Consent. The first paragraph mentioned recipes. The second mentioned promotional use. The third mentioned future brand discussions. She closed the folder. "No." Lauren's smile vanished. "You haven't even read it properly." "I read enough." Daniel stepped forward. "Mom, please. This dinner could affect my promotion. Then don't build your promotion on something you don't own." Silence hit the kitchen hard. Lauren's eyes narrowed. "You are being incredibly selfish." Marjorie felt the old pain rise, but this time it did not control her. She took the folder, walked to Thomas's office, placed it on the copier, and made a full copy while Daniel and Lauren waited in the kitchen. The machine hummed slowly, page after page. It was the sound of a boundary becoming real. When she returned, she handed the original back to Lauren. "My attorney will review the copy." Lauren's face changed, not anger this time. Alarm. Daniel noticed it too. Marjorie saw him notice. Lauren took the folder too quickly. "Fine," she said. "If you want to embarrass Daniel, that's your choice." "No," Marjorie said. "If Daniel is embarrassed, it will be because of what he signed without reading." Daniel's face paled. Lauren grabbed her purse and turned toward the hall. Daniel followed, but at the doorway he looked back. For a second, he seemed ready to say something true. Then Lauren called his name, and he left. Marjorie locked the door behind them. Her hands shook afterward, but she did not regret a word. She returned to Thomas's office, placed the copied consent form beside the transfer packet, and took one more photo for her records. Only then did she notice the footer printed at the bottom of the final page. "Prepared by Whitaker Brand Strategy, LLC." Marjorie stared at the name. Whitaker was Lauren's maiden name. Marjorie kept staring at the footer until the words seemed to separate from the page. "Prepared by Whitaker Brand Strategy, LLC." Lauren's maiden name sat there like a fingerprint. Not hidden exactly, but tucked low enough that a tired woman might miss it. Marjorie touched the bottom corner of the paper with one finger. The document Lauren had called simple was not simple at all. It had been prepared by a company tied to Lauren. She photographed the footer, then checked the rest of the pages more carefully. The language was polished, soft, and dangerous in the way polished language often was. It talked about heritage, menu inspiration, family storytelling, and future promotional opportunities. It did not say transfer outright. It did not say ownership, but it opened doors. Small ones, the kind a person could later claim had always been understood. Marjorie placed the copy in a separate folder and wrote Lauren Company footer across the tab. Then she opened her laptop and searched Whitaker Brand Strategy, LLC. The website was minimal. A landing page, a tasteful logo, a short paragraph about helping local businesses elevate authentic stories into marketable brands. Lauren's name appeared under founder and principal consultant. Marjorie read the phrase twice. Authentic stories. She wondered how many authentic stories began with hiding the person who lived them in the kitchen. There were no client lists, but there was a contact email and a business address. Marjorie took screenshots of every page. She saved them with dates in the file name and sent copies to Evelyn. She did not write a long explanation, only one line. "This company prepared the dinner consent form Lauren wanted me to sign." Evelyn replied 20 minutes later, "Do not communicate with Lauren about this document. Save everything. I will review." Marjorie exhaled. A week ago, that message would have frightened her. Now it gave shape to the fear. It told her where to put it. The next morning, Daniel called again. She did not answer. He left a voicemail. "Mom, I don't know what Lauren put on the footer. I didn't prepare that document. I just need you to understand this dinner is important. My division director will be there. A food columnist may come too. Lauren was trying to make things look professional. Please don't turn this into something bigger than it is." Marjorie listened to the voicemail twice. Not because she enjoyed hearing his panic, but because of one sentence. "I don't know what Lauren put on the footer." He had already separated himself from the document. carefully, quickly, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of instinct. Either way, he knew the footer mattered. She saved the voicemail. By noon, Lauren sent another message. I'm stopping by at 2 so we can finish the menu. Please be reasonable. Marjorie typed back, do not come today. I am not available. Lauren replied almost immediately, this is for Daniel. Marjorie looked at the words and felt the old pull of motherhood. Daniel's career, Daniel's stress, Daniel's future. For years, that pull had been enough to bend her. This time, she placed the phone down and did not answer. At 1:57, Lauren's car turned into the driveway. Marjorie watched from the front window. Lauren got out wearing sunglasses and a camel-colored coat, carrying a leather folder against her chest. She walked to the front door confidently, as if Marjorie's refusal had been a scheduling inconvenience, not a boundary. The doorbell rang. Marjorie did not move. It rang again. Then came a knock. Firm, impatient. Marjorie, Lauren called through the door. I know you're home. Marjorie picked up her phone and opened the camera. From the sign door, she recorded Lauren standing on the porch, knocking again. I told you not to come today, Marjorie said through the closed door. Lauren leaned closer. And I told you we need to talk. No, a pause followed. Marjorie could almost feel Lauren adjusting strategies. Daniel is extremely upset, Lauren said. You are putting him in a terrible position. Daniel is an adult, then act like his mother. That one struck hard. Marjorie's hand tightened around the phone, but she kept recording. Lauren lowered her voice. You know, this behavior is exactly why Daniel worries about you living alone. There it was again, the suggestion, the seed planted in case anyone later needed a reason to doubt her. Marjorie stepped back from the door. Leave my property, Lauren. For several seconds there was silence. Then Lauren laughed softly. Your property. Fine, we'll remember that. Marjorie heard her heels move away across the porch. The car door closed. The engine started. Only when the driveway was empty did Marjorie stop recording. Her hands shook afterward. Not from weakness, but from restraint. It was harder than she expected to say no to someone standing outside your own door. Harder still when that person was married to your son and knew exactly which wounds to press. She sent the video to Evelyn. Again, one sentence. She came after I told her not to. That evening, Evelyn called. Marjorie, she said, I did a preliminary search. Marjorie sat down at the kitchen table. And? Whitaker Brand Strategy was formed 9 months ago. Lauren is listed as the registered agent. That alone is not suspicious. But there is a pending trademark inquiry connected to the phrase Sunday Kitchen Heritage Table. It is not Cole's Sunday Kitchen exactly, but it is close enough that I want to look further. Marjorie's heart beat slowly, heavily. Who filed it? I don't have the full application yet. It may only be an inquiry or draft filing. I'm ordering the records. Marjorie looked toward the dark window. Her reflection stared back at her, pale but upright. Evelyn, she said, can someone take a name by changing a few words? Sometimes people try. Whether they succeed depends on the facts, prior use, registrations, and confusion in the marketplace. I don't want to overstate anything yet. Evelyn paused. But your concern is reasonable. Reasonable. That word did more for Marjorie than comfort ever could. It confirmed she was not imagining the pattern. She was not being dramatic. She was not confused after surgery. She was seeing clearly. The next 2 days passed in a strange quiet. Daniel did not come by. Lauren did not knock again, but the messages continued, short, controlled, pressing from different angles. Daniel asked if she had reconsidered the dinner. Lauren sent menu edits as if Marjorie had agreed. Daniel said his director had already heard about the family-style concept and was excited. Lauren asked whether Marjorie preferred to be credited as family recipe consultant or not credited at all. Marjorie saved every message. On Friday morning, Samuel Grant called. She recognized the number from his business card and answered while sitting in Thomas's office, surrounded by folders. I hope this isn't a bad time, Samuel said. No, Marjorie said. It's actually a good time. I've been thinking about our conversation. I don't want to pressure you, but I'd like to invite you to see the restaurant space. No decisions. Just coffee and a walkthrough. Marjorie looked down at the old Cole's Sunday Kitchen menu on her desk. Her first instinct was to say she was too busy, too old, too tangled in family trouble. Then she remembered Lauren standing on the porch, telling her to act like Daniel's mother, as if motherhood required surrender. When? Marjorie asked. Tomorrow morning, if you're free. I am. Samuel sounded pleased, but not triumphant. Good, and bring anyone you want. Attorney friend, whoever makes you comfortable. Marjorie smiled faintly. That was how respect sounded. It did not corner. It made room. After the call, she sent Evelyn a note about Samuel's invitation. Evelyn approved with one condition. Do not bring original recipes. Take copies only if you choose. So Marjorie chose 3 recipe cards to photocopy. chicken pot pie, buttermilk biscuits, peach cobbler. She held each one a little longer than necessary before placing it on the scanner. The cards were stained, softened by decades of hands, marked with notes Thomas had written in the margins. Reduce salt for summer batch. More cinnamon if serving cold. M likes crust thicker. M, that one made her stop. Thomas had always called her M when they were alone in the restaurant office. Seeing the letter in his handwriting nearly undid her. But it also reminded her that these recipes were not just ingredients. They were records of a life, a marriage, a business, a woman's work. She scanned them, saved them, and left the originals locked in the office drawer. At 6 that evening, Daniel called again. This time, Marjorie answered. "Mom," he said, sounding relieved. "Thank God. Can we please talk normally? We can talk respectfully." He sighed. "Fine, respectfully. Lauren says you refused to meet. I told her not to come. She came anyway. She was trying to fix things." "No, Daniel. She was trying to push past a boundary." His patience thinned. "You keep using that word." "Because it applies." He went quiet. Then lower, he said. "My director confirmed today. The promotion dinner is happening in 2 weeks." Marjorie said nothing. "We need your cooking." Need. There it was again. Daniel corrected himself quickly. "I mean, we'd really appreciate your help. Would I be invited to sit at the table?" A pause. Marjorie closed her eyes. "Mom, it's a professional dinner," he said carefully. "In my house? We thought your house would give the right feeling." "The right feeling," she repeated. "But not the right person. That's not fair." "Then answer the question. Would I sit with the guests as your mother?" Marjorie felt the last soft place in her begin to close. "I'm not cooking for a dinner where I'm hidden in my own home." Daniel's voice sharpened. "You're really going to risk my promotion over pride?" "No," Marjorie said. "You risked it by letting Lauren build your image on my labor." He hung up. Marjorie set the phone down and sat there until the house grew dark around her. Then she opened her laptop to save the call notes while the words were fresh. At the top of her inbox was a new email from Evelyn. Subject: Trademark Inquiry Records Received. Marjorie opened it. The message was brief. "Marjorie, call me in the morning. The inquiry was submitted by Whitaker Brand Strategy, but the supporting contact listed is Daniel Cole. There is also a scanned authorization attached. I do not recognize the signature as yours." Marjorie read Evelyn's email 3 times before she moved. The screen glowed in the dark office, making the room around her feel smaller than it was. The inquiry was submitted by Whitaker Brand Strategy, but the supporting contact listed is Daniel Cole. There is also a scanned authorization attached. I do not recognize the signature as yours. She clicked the attachment, then stopped before opening it. Her hand rested on the mouse. Suddenly, she felt very aware of her age, her knee, the empty house. The silence Daniel and Lauren kept trying to turn into weakness. Then she opened the file. The authorization was 1 page. It gave Whitaker Brand Strategy permission to explore heritage naming, menu concept development, and related brand opportunities connected to Cole's Sunday Kitchen. Marjorie's name was typed beneath a scanned signature. The signature looked almost like hers, almost. The M was wrong. Marjorie had made the same loop at the start of her name since she was in her 20s, a habit from signing restaurant checks at speed. The scanned signature on the document was flatter, too clean. It looked like someone had copied her name from another paper and stretched it to fit the line. Her stomach turned. She did not call Daniel. She did not call Lauren. She did not scream or cry or pace the room. Instead, she downloaded the file, saved it in 3 places, and printed 2 copies. One went into the folder for Evelyn. One went into an envelope for the bank box. Then she opened her email and searched her own name. Marjorie Cole authorization, nothing. Cole's Sunday Kitchen. Too many memories appeared. Old catering inquiries, community event notes, a few messages from Thomas's last year alive. She almost stopped, but then a message from 9 months ago appeared in the search results. Subject: Scan for Daniel. Her chest tightened. She opened it. The email had been sent from her account to Daniel's personal address. Attached was a scan of a medical release form from after her knee surgery. The message body was only 1 sentence. "Here is the signature page you asked for." Marjorie stared at it. She did not remember sending that. She remembered Daniel helping her scan several insurance forms during recovery. She remembered being tired, sitting in a recliner with an ice pack on her knee, while Lauren stood nearby complaining that the printer was old. She remembered signing medical paperwork. She did not remember sending a clean signature page to Daniel. Her hands went cold. The authorization signature from Evelyn's attachment had the same flat angle as the signature on the medical release. Not proof, not yet, but enough to chill her. Marjorie forwarded the email to Evelyn with the subject line possible source signature. Then she placed her phone across the desk and waited for morning. Sleep came in pieces. She woke before sunrise with her neck stiff and her mind already moving. At 8:04, Evelyn called. "I saw what you sent," Evelyn said. Marjorie sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched. "Could they have used it?" "I can't say that without forensic review. But you were right to preserve it. Do not accuse them directly yet." Marjorie closed her eyes. "Daniel asked me last night if I was risking his promotion over pride." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "This is no longer just about a dinner." "No," Marjorie said. "It isn't. We'll need to request more records through proper channels. For now, keep everything. No phone arguments about the signature. Written communication only, if possible." Marjorie looked toward the hallway where Thomas's office door stood half open. "I'm supposed to meet Samuel Grant this morning to see his restaurant project." "Go," Evelyn said. "But take copies, not originals. And say nothing about the questionable signature unless there is a reason. Why? Because you deserve to have one conversation this week that isn't about people taking things from you." Marjorie almost smiled. An hour later, she arrived at the restaurant space Samuel had mentioned. It sat in a renovated brick building on a quiet street near downtown. The windows were dusty. The floors were unfinished. A paper sign on the door read "The Sunday Table" in plain black letters. Samuel met her outside with 2 coffees in cardboard cups. "I didn't know how you take it anymore," he said. "So I brought cream and sugar separately." The small courtesy nearly undid her more than a compliment would have. Inside, the space smelled of sawdust and paint. Sunlight fell through tall front windows, catching dust in the air. There were no tables yet, only taped outlines on the floor where booths would go, but Marjorie could see it. People sitting close, plates being passed, conversations softening over food. Samuel watched her face. "Can you picture it?" "Yes," she said before she could express herself. He smiled, but he did not rush. They walked slowly through the future dining room, then the kitchen. It was larger than the kitchen at Cole's Sunday Kitchen had been, with room for proper prep stations and ovens that did not require kicking the bottom door to make them close. Marjorie touched the edge of a stainless steel counter. Thomas would have loved this. Samuel's expression softened. "He would have told me I bought the wrong equipment. He would have been right." Samuel laughed, and for the first time in days, Marjorie laughed too. They sat at a folding table near the back, where Samuel spread out a folder of his own. Not legal documents. Plans, menu concept sketches, community survey notes, a list of dishes people said they missed from local restaurants that had closed over the years. Pot pie appeared on the list. Peach cobbler, too. Marjorie saw the words and felt something in her chest loosen. Samuel leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to hand anything over. I want to hire you as a consultant if you're interested. Paid, with a written agreement. Your attorney can review everything. If we use your recipes, you approve how. If you say no, we don't." Marjorie looked at him carefully. "Why?" He seemed surprised by the question. "Because they're yours." The answer was so simple that she had no defense against it. She took the photocopied recipe cards from her purse and placed them on the table. Samuel did not touch them until she nodded. That mattered. He read the chicken pot pie card first, smiling at Thomas's margin notes. "More black pepper than public safety recommends," he read aloud. Marjorie laughed softly. That was Thomas. Samuel looked up. "People still ask about your place. People remember better than family sometimes," Marjorie said. Samuel did not pretend not to hear the pain. "That bad?" She looked down at her hands. A week ago, she would have denied it. Now denial felt like helping Lauren. "My daughter-in-law has mocked my cooking for years," she said. "My son lets her. Now there are documents involving my restaurant name that I never approved." Samuel's smile disappeared. "Documents? My attorney is reviewing them." "Good," he said immediately. No curiosity, no gossip. Just approval that she had help. Then he stood and walked to a small office area. "Wait here." When he returned, he carried an old manila folder. "I wasn't going to bring this up today unless the conversation felt right. Maybe it does." Marjorie stiffened. "What is it?" "About a year ago, someone contacted a restaurant development group I know. They were asking whether the Cole's Sunday Kitchen name had market value. I heard about it because your name came up. I told them any conversation should go through you." Marjorie's mouth went dry. Who contacted them? Samuel opened the folder and slid over a printed email. "The message was forwarded to me by a partner who thought I might know the family." Marjorie looked at the sender, Daniel Cole. Her son's name stared back at her from the top of the email. The message was short and cautious, asking about legacy recipe valuation and possible future transfer discussions. It was not a signed contract. It was not proof of theft. But it was proof that Daniel had been exploring the value of the name long before Lauren's promotion dinner. Samuel sat quietly while she read. Marjorie forced herself to breathe. "May I have a copy? I made one for you." She folded the paper carefully and placed it in her purse beside Evelyn's folder. Samuel's voice was gentle. "Marjorie, I don't know what your son intended, but if someone is circling your legacy, you need to protect it before they decide it already belongs to them." When she drove home, the restaurant space stayed in her mind, not as escape, as possibility, a place where her work could exist without apology. Her phone buzzed as she pulled into her driveway. "Lauren." Marjorie didn't answer. A voicemail appeared a minute later. She played it on speaker while sitting in the car. Lauren's voice was tight and controlled. "Marjorie, I don't know what Samuel Grant has been telling you, but you need to be very careful. If you interfere with Daniel's promotion dinner or start making accusations about business matters you don't understand, people may begin asking whether you're capable of managing your own affairs." Marjorie saved the voicemail. Then another text arrived from Daniel. "Mom, I need to know exactly what Samuel showed you. Were you talking about Cole's Sunday kitchen?" Marjorie looked from the message to her house. For the first time, the question was not whether Daniel had hidden something, it was how much he already knew. Marjorie sat in her car with Lauren's voicemail still open and Daniel's message waiting beneath it. The driveway looked the same as it always had. The front porch needed sweeping. The hydrangeas along the walkway had started to brown at the edges. The house looked peaceful from the outside, almost gentle. Inside her phone, her family was asking what Samuel had shown her. That was the part she could not ignore. Daniel had not asked why Samuel was involved. He had not asked whether Samuel was trustworthy. He had asked exactly what Samuel had shown her, as if he already knew there was something to be shown. Marjorie saved Lauren's voicemail to her evidence folder. Then she took a screenshot of Daniel's text and sent both to Evelyn. Her message was short. "They know I met Samuel. Daniel is asking what he showed me." Evelyn responded within minutes. "Do not answer that question. If Daniel wants to discuss documents, ask him to put it in writing or speak through counsel." Marjorie read the message twice before getting out of the car. The old version of her would have called Daniel immediately to calm him down. She would have explained, softened, apologized for worrying him. This time, she locked the car, walked into her house, and placed Samuel's printed email beside the questionable authorization. The pile was growing. That frightened her, but it also made the situation harder to deny. At 7 that evening, Daniel arrived alone. He knocked. That small change mattered, and Marjorie noticed it before she opened the door. He stood on the porch without Lauren, his tie loosened and his face drawn. For the first time in days, he looked less angry than scared. "Can I come in?" he asked. Marjorie's hand stayed on the door. "Is Lauren here?" "No. Are you recording this conversation?" Daniel frowned. "What? No, I need to ask now." The question embarrassed him. She saw it in his face, but embarrassment was not harm. She had spent too many years confusing the two. He stepped inside when she moved aside. In the kitchen, he did not sit until she did. His eyes went briefly to the table, where she had left nothing visible. The folders were locked in Thomas's office now. "Samuel showed you an email," Daniel said. Marjorie folded her hands. "Is that a question?" His jaw tightened. "Mom, Daniel." He looked away first. For a few seconds, the only sound was the refrigerator humming. Marjorie waited. It was one of the hardest things she had ever done. Waiting without rescuing him, letting discomfort do its work. Finally, Daniel said, "I contacted a development group last year. I know. It wasn't what you think." "What do I think?" He rubbed his face with both hands, suddenly looking exhausted. "That I was trying to take something from you, were you?" "No." The answer came fast, too fast. Then he softened it. "I didn't see it that way." Marjorie felt the sting of that more than if he had simply lied. People could do real damage while telling themselves they meant well. "What way did you see it?" "As an opportunity." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Mom, the restaurant was closed. The name was just sitting there. Lauren said there were trends around heritage food and local comfort brands. She thought maybe we could revive something, maybe license the concept, maybe help you financially." Marjorie almost laughed at the last part. "Me financially?" He looked defensive. "You live alone in an old house. You had surgery." I worried. "You called the bank about power of attorney." His face changed. There, another piece landed. "I asked general questions," he said. "Without telling me, I didn't want to scare you." "No, Daniel, you didn't want to involve me." He stood and walked to the sink, then turned back as if he had nowhere to put his hands. "You make everything sound sinister." "I'm describing what happened." He swallowed. "Lauren said if we waited until you were fully recovered, the opportunity might disappear." Marjorie closed her eyes briefly. "If we waited until you were fully recovered." The words revealed the shape of the thing better than any accusation. You discussed my business while I was medicated and healing. Daniel flinched. That sounds awful. It is awful. He looked down. For a moment she thought he might finally admit something real. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it instinctively and Marjorie saw Lauren's name flash across the screen. His whole body changed. Shoulders tight, face guarded. Don't answer it, Marjorie said. He looked up. If you came here to talk to me, talk to me. Daniel let the call go. That too mattered. Not enough, but something. Marjorie took a slow breath. Did you submit an authorization with my signature? His face went blank, not confused, blank. What authorization? For the trademark inquiry. He stared at her. Trademark inquiry? Evelyn found it. His voice dropped. Evelyn is searching public records. She is doing what I hired her to do. He stepped back from the sink. Mom, you need to slow down. No. The word came so firmly that both of them seemed surprised by it. Marjorie stood, using the table for support, only because her knees stiffened when she sat too long. I have slowed down for everyone else for years. I slowed down when Lauren mocked my food. I slowed down when you stayed silent. I slowed down when keys were made without permission. I slowed down when my name appeared on papers I never saw. I am done slowing down. Daniel looked at her with something close to pain. I didn't forge your signature. I didn't say you did, but you're thinking it. I'm thinking someone did. A silence filled the kitchen. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He ignored it, but his eyes flicked down. Marjorie saw fear there now. Not just fear of her, fear of Lauren, fear of what he might not know. Did Lauren handle the trademark stuff? Marjorie asked. She handled the branding side. That is not an answer. He closed his eyes. She drafted things. I sent a few emails. She said it was exploratory. Did you give her a scan of my signature? No. Then his face shifted. I don't think so. Marjorie's heart sank. That is also not an answer. Daniel sat down heavily. After your surgery, you had trouble with the insurance forms. I scanned paperwork for you. Lauren helped organize the files. There may have been signature pages on my laptop. I didn't think of them that way. Marjorie gripped the back of the chair. Not to steady herself from age, but from anger. You didn't think my signature mattered? That's not what I mean. But that is what happened. He had no defense for that. At last, he whispered, What do you want from me? The question was almost painful in its smallness. He sounded like a man who had spent so long avoiding responsibility that accountability felt like punishment. I want every email, file, draft, scan, and message involving Cole's Sunday Kitchen, my recipes, my house, my accounts, and any power of attorney discussion, Marjorie said. His head lifted. That's a lot, yes. Lauren won't agree to that. I did not ask Lauren. Daniel looked toward the dark window. His reflection stared back at him. If I give you things, she'll say I betrayed her. Marjorie's voice softened, not because she was yielding, but because the truth deserved calm. Daniel, you already betrayed someone. You just have to decide whether you're going to keep doing it. He looked at her then, really looked. For one breath, Marjorie saw her son beneath the husband Lauren had trained into silence. Then his phone buzzed for a third time and the moment cracked. He stood. I need to go. Of course you do. He flinched at that. At the door, he stopped without turning around. I didn't know about the signature, I swear. Marjorie wanted to believe him. That was the worst part. Even with the documents, the key tags, the voicemail, the bank inquiry, some broken part of her still wanted her son to be merely weak, not dishonest. Then prove it, she said. Daniel left without answering. The next morning, Marjorie drove to the bank and placed Samuel's email copy into the safe deposit box. Then she drove to Evelyn's office with a flash drive containing every screenshot, voicemail, scan, and call note she had saved. Evelyn's assistant made a duplicate while Marjorie waited. Evelyn reviewed the latest materials with a controlled expression. This is enough for me to send a preservation letter, Evelyn said, not an accusation. A formal request that Daniel and Lauren preserve all documents and electronic communications related to the brand, recipes, property, and any authorization bearing your name. Marjorie nodded. Do it. That may escalate things. They already escalated them. Evelyn studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right. By late afternoon, the letter had gone out by email and certified mail. Daniel called 20 minutes later. Marjorie did not answer. Lauren called next. Then again. At 6:38, a text arrived from Lauren. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Marjorie saved it. A minute later, another message followed. If you want to act like a stranger, don't expect to be treated like family at the promotion dinner. Marjorie stared at the phone, not because the threat surprised her, but because it finally clarified the choice in front of her. She could still cook for them and pretend the table meant love, or she could let the empty chair speak. Marjorie did not answer Lauren's threat. She sat at the kitchen table with the phone beside her, watching the words on the screen, until they stopped feeling like a message and started feeling like evidence. If you want to act like a stranger, don't expect to be treated like family at the promotion dinner. For years, family had been the word that pulled Marjorie back into the kitchen. Family meant making the pie, even when her knee hurt. Family meant smiling through Lauren's comments. Family meant pretending Daniel's silence was not a choice. Now Lauren had said the quiet part clearly. Family was conditional. Family was something Marjorie would be allowed to keep only if she served. She saved the message, emailed it to herself, and added it to the folder labeled Threats and Pressure. The folder name looked harsh on the screen. She almost changed it to something softer. Then she stopped. Softening things was how she had stayed trapped for so long. The next morning, Evelyn called with a firmer voice than usual. I received confirmation that Daniel and Lauren opened the preservation letter, she said. Daniel did not respond. Lauren did. Marjorie stood in Thomas's office, one hand resting on the file cabinet. What did she say? She wrote that your concerns are the result of confusion and emotional stress after surgery. Marjorie closed her eyes. There it was again, the story Lauren wanted everyone to believe. Not that Marjorie had questions, not that documents existed, not that keys had been copied, accounts had been questioned, or her name had appeared where it should not have. Just confusion. Can she use that against me? Marjorie asked. Not by itself, Evelyn said, but patterns matter. That is why we keep records. Today I want you to meet me at First County Bank. We need to review your safe deposit contents together and locate the original business documents if they exist. Marjorie looked toward the envelope holding Thomas's letter. I thought I already had the important papers. You may, Evelyn said, but Thomas was thorough. If he preserved ownership rights, there may be originals somewhere safer than the house. At 10:30, Marjorie met Evelyn at the bank. Helen Price greeted them and escorted them into a small private room near the vault. The room was plain, with a table, 2 chairs, and a door that closed heavily behind them. Marjorie felt a strange comfort in that heaviness. Some doors were supposed to protect. Helen brought the box in and stepped out to give them privacy. Marjorie opened it with her key. Inside were the documents she had recently placed there, but beneath the newer envelope sat another packet she had forgotten existed. It was sealed in a large legal envelope with Thomas's handwriting on the front. M and Evelyn only. Marjorie looked at Evelyn. Evelyn's face softened. He always did think ahead. Marjorie's fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside were several documents clipped together, along with a handwritten note from Thomas. If you are reading this, I am either gone or someone has forgotten that love is not permission. Cole's Sunday Kitchen was built by both of us. Do not let anyone make you feel guilty for owning what you earned. Marjorie had to stop reading. Evelyn waited without speaking. When Marjorie could breathe again, they turned to the legal documents. Evelyn reviewed the first page carefully, then the second. By the third, her expression grew still in the way lawyers became still when the facts began forming a shape. This is an ownership preservation agreement, Evelyn said. What does that mean? It means Thomas documented the intellectual property related to Cole's Sunday Kitchen. The trade name, signature recipes, menu language, and licensing rights. She moved her finger down the page. According to this, after Thomas's death, 60% control remained with you. Daniel had a future interest, but only under specific conditions. What conditions? Evelyn read silently for a moment. Your written consent, a voluntary transfer, independent legal review, and no transfer while you were medically impaired or under undue pressure. Marjorie sat very still. Those words were not accidental. Thomas had written protections for exactly the kind of moment she was living now. Evelyn turned another page. There is also a clause saying Daniel cannot negotiate, license, or assign the brand without your written authorization. Real authorization, not assumption. Marjorie thought of Daniel in her kitchen. I'm your son. As if that answered everything. Is it valid? She asked. It appears properly signed and witnessed, but I'll need to review it fully. We may also need to confirm whether any filings were made at the time. Evelyn placed a paper flag on the signature page, but this is very important. Important. The word felt too small. For the first time since the dinner humiliation, Marjorie felt the ground beneath her become solid. Not because the fight was over. It was not. But because Thomas had left more than memories. He had left structure. He had left proof that her work had value before Lauren ever tried to repackage it. Evelyn continued reviewing the packet. Near the back, a thin accounting sheet was tucked between 2 pages. It listed old cookbook royalties, local licensing requests, and a few rejected proposals from businesses that had wanted to use the Cole name. Then Evelyn stopped. Marjorie, she said slowly, look at this. Marjorie leaned closer. Near the bottom of the accounting sheet was a handwritten note dated 3 years earlier. It was not Thomas's handwriting. It had been added later in blue ink. Possible renewed interest via DC contact. Whitaker? DC Daniel Cole. Whitaker. Lauren. Marjorie's stomach tightened 3 years ago? That is what it says. But Lauren said this was recent. Daniel said last year. Evelyn's expression hardened. Then someone is not being honest about when the discussions began. Marjorie took out her phone and photographed the note. Evelyn did not stop her. When they left the vault area, Helen walked them back to her office. Evelyn asked for printed logs of recent safe deposit access. Helen verified Marjorie's identification again before producing them. The box had not been accessed recently before Marjorie opened it, which meant Daniel and Lauren had likely not seen the envelope inside. That should have relieved her. Instead, it raised another question. If they had not seen Thomas's original protections, what exactly did they think they could get away with? Back at home, Marjorie made copies of the newly found documents on the small scanner in Thomas's office. Evelyn had taken certified copies for review, but Marjorie wanted her own organized records. She labeled each file carefully, then opened a notebook and began writing a timeline by hand. Surgery date. Daniel helped scan medical forms. Lauren obtained keys. Power of attorney inquiry. Brand transfer page found. Whitaker brand strategy footer. Trademark inquiry with questionable signature. Samuel email from Daniel. Preservation letter sent. Lauren threat. Original ownership agreement found. The act of writing steadied her. Each line took something vague and made it concrete. She was not chasing shadows. She was following a trail. At 4 o'clock, Daniel texted, Mom, please call me. Lauren says you're trying to ruin her business now. Marjorie stared at the words. Her business. Not a family dinner. Not Daniel's promotion. Lauren's business. She saved the message. A second text arrived. She says Evelyn contacted her company email and now she's worried about liability. Why would you do that? Marjorie did not know Evelyn had contacted Lauren's company email yet. That meant Evelyn had found a formal business address worth using. It also meant Lauren was scared enough to complain through Daniel. Marjorie wrote one reply. Any discussion about documents should go through Evelyn. Daniel answered within seconds. So that's it? You're choosing a lawyer over your son? Marjorie felt the sentence land in the old place, the mother place. The place that wanted to say, no, sweetheart, never, of course not. Instead, she typed slowly. I am choosing not to be pressured. She sent it before she could soften it. For nearly an hour, nothing came back. Then, just after sunset, an email arrived from Evelyn with a secure attachment. The message was brief. I found an accounting reference connected to Whitaker brand strategy. It is not conclusive yet, but I need you to review whether you recognize this payment description. Marjorie opened the attachment. It was a transaction screenshot from a business inquiry record, not from Marjorie's bank account. The amount was not enormous, but it was specific enough to feel real. $4,800. Consulting pre-fee, Cole Heritage Menu Concept. Recipient, Whitaker Brand Strategy, LLC. Marjorie stared at the line until the numbers blurred. Lauren had not just mocked the food. Someone had already been paid to package it. Marjorie stared at the transaction line for a long time. $4,800. Consulting pre-fee, Cole Heritage Menu Concept. Recipient, Whitaker Brand Strategy, LLC. The amount was not life-changing. That almost made it worse. Lauren had not stolen millions. She had not emptied an account. She had done something quieter and uglier. She had accepted money to package a history she mocked at Marjorie's own table. Marjorie printed the attachment and placed it beside the other documents. Then she wrote the amount into her timeline. Her hand did not shake this time. $4,800 consulting pre-fee, Lauren's company. Possible use of Cole name or menu concept. When she finished, she sat back in Thomas's chair and looked around the office. The room had become something different in the past week. Not a shrine anymore. Not a place she avoided because grief lived in the drawers. It had become a command center. Folders stacked neatly. Copies dated. Voicemails transcribed. Passwords changed. A tired woman could still prepare. The next morning, Evelyn called before 9. I want to be careful about the payment, Evelyn said. It suggests Lauren's company received money related to a Cole Heritage concept, but we don't yet know the full terms. Could she claim it had nothing to do with me? She may try. That is why we need context. Emails, proposals, invoices, anything tying that payment to your recipe's word name. Marjorie looked at the photocopied consent form. She wanted me to sign permission to reference Cole's Sunday Kitchen. And she may have needed that after the fact, Evelyn said. That is one possibility. After the fact. The words made Marjorie cold. You mean she may already have taken money and then tried to get my signature later? I mean, we should not assume, Evelyn said gently. But yes, that is one concern. Marjorie closed her eyes. What should I do? Do not confront Lauren. Do not give Daniel details. If either of them asks, say all document questions go through me. Also, I recommend you send a written statement making clear that you do not consent to use of your name, recipes, restaurant history, or home for the promotion dinner. Marjorie opened a blank email while Evelyn spoke. To Daniel and Lauren? Yes, keep it simple. No emotion, no accusations. That was harder than Marjorie expected. Not because she lacked words, but because she had too many. Years of swallowed humiliation crowded behind her teeth. But she typed the version Evelyn suggested. Daniel and Lauren, I am confirming in writing that I do not consent to the use of my home, my cooking, my recipes, the Cole's Sunday kitchen name, or any reference to my work for the promotion dinner or related promotional materials. Please direct any questions about documents or permissions to Evelyn Park. She read it twice, then she sent it. The reply from Lauren came 11 minutes later. You are being vindictive and irrational. This is exactly why Daniel is concerned. Marjorie saved it. Daniel's reply came later. Mom, please don't do this. You're making me look bad at work. That one hurt more. It always did when he made himself the injured party. Marjorie saved it too. By afternoon, the pressure shifted form. Lauren stopped texting directly and began calling. Marjorie let every call go to voicemail. The first message was controlled. The second was sharper. The third carried the brittle edge of panic. You don't understand what this dinner represents, Lauren said. People have expectations now. Daniel's director is coming. A columnist may be coming. You can't just pull the heart out of the concept at the last minute. Marjorie listened from her kitchen table, the heart. Lauren had finally called Marjorie's work the heart of something, but only when she was losing access to it. Marjorie saved the voicemail and sent it to Evelyn. At 4, Daniel came by again. This time he knocked once, then waited. Marjorie saw him through the front window but did not open the door right away. He looked worn down, his shoulders bent under something heavier than annoyance. She opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. His eyes dropped to the chain. Really? Yes. Mom, I'm not dangerous. I didn't say you were. Then why are you treating me like this? Marjorie looked at him through the narrow opening. Because you keep asking me to ignore what is happening. He held up a folder. I brought some emails. Her grip tightened on the door. What emails? The ones you asked for. That changed things. Not enough to let him in without caution, but enough to open the door wider. She removed the chain and stepped back. Daniel entered slowly, as if he understood that he was there by permission now. In the kitchen, he placed the folder on the table. I printed what I could find. Some of it is embarrassing. Some of it makes me look stupid. But I didn't forge your signature, Mom. Marjorie did not touch the folder yet. Did Lauren know you were bringing this? No, that one word carried fear with it. She sat across from him, then why bring it? Daniel looked at the table instead of her, because last night I searched my old emails. I found things I didn't remember, or maybe I didn't want to remember. Marjorie waited. He opened the folder and pushed the first pages toward her. Emails between Daniel and a restaurant development contact. Careful language, valuation, heritage concept, potential brand revival, then an email from Lauren to Daniel. Marjorie read it slowly. If your mother sees this too early, she'll get emotional. We need to frame it as helping her preserve Thomas's legacy. Marjorie felt the words like a hand pressing against her chest. Daniel spoke quietly. I told myself she meant well. Marjorie turned another page, another email from Lauren. We can get preliminary interest first. Once Daniel's promotion dinner goes well, Marjorie will be more cooperative because she'll see the value. Marjorie looked up. Daniel swallowed. I didn't answer that one, but you kept going. He closed his eyes briefly. Yes, the admission was small but real. Marjorie hated how much she wanted it to be enough. She turned to the next page and saw the consulting fee reference. Lauren had sent Daniel a short message after receiving the $4,800. First payment cleared. Now we need Marjorie's consent cleaned up before anyone asks questions. The kitchen seemed to tilt. Daniel leaned forward quickly. I didn't know what she meant by cleaned up. I thought she meant paperwork. Daniel, I know, he said, voice breaking slightly. I know how that sounds. How does it sound? He stared at the email as if seeing it for the first time. Like she had already done something and needed to cover it. Marjorie sat very still. There it was. Not from Evelyn, not from Samuel, from Daniel himself. He was not fully awake yet, but his eyes were opening. What did you do when you saw this last night? She asked. I asked Lauren. And he gave a humorless laugh. She said I was letting you manipulate me. Marjorie felt no satisfaction. Onlys. That sounds familiar. Daniel looked at her then, and shame moved across his face in a way she had not seen for years. I'm sorry. The words were soft, too soft to repair anything, but too honest to ignore. Marjorie closed the folder. I need to give these to Evelyn. I know. Are there digital copies? Yes. I put them on a flash drive. He took it from his jacket pocket and placed it on the table. That was the first truly useful thing he had done. Marjorie picked it up. Thank you. Daniel looked relieved, then afraid of being relieved. Mom, what happens now? Evelyn reviews it. And the dinner? Marjorie looked at him for a long moment. You still want to have it? He rubbed his face. I don't know what I want. My director already expects something. Lauren has invited people. If we cancel, it looks bad. If we keep going, it may be worse. For once, he was not asking her to fix it. That mattered too. Marjorie stood and placed the folder in Thomas's office. When she came back, Daniel was staring at the kitchen wall where an old framed menu from Cole's Sunday Kitchen hung beside the pantry. I forgot how much Dad's name was in all of this, he said. Marjorie's voice was quiet. It was never just his name. Daniel looked down. I know, but he had not known. Not really. After he left, Marjorie drove straight to Evelyn's office and delivered the folder and flash drive. Evelyn promised to review them that evening. On the way home, Marjorie stopped at the grocery store, not because Lauren needed a menu, not because Daniel needed help, but because she wanted soup for herself and fresh bread from the bakery. It was nearly dark when she returned home. A black SUV sat across the street. For a moment, she thought it belonged to a neighbor's guest. Then the driver's door opened. Lauren stepped out. Her face looked pale beneath the streetlight, but her voice was steady when she crossed toward Marjorie's driveway. You took something from Daniel, Lauren said. Marjorie held the grocery bag against her hip. No, Lauren's eyes hardened. He gave you emails that weren't yours. They involved my name. They involved my husband. Marjorie met her gaze. And my consent. Lauren stepped closer, lowering her voice. You have no idea how much damage you can do if you keep pushing. Marjorie reached into her coat pocket and pressed record on her phone before Lauren could see. Lauren's next words came cold and clear. If Daniel loses this promotion because of you, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how unstable you've become. Marjorie kept her hand in her coat pocket and let the phone record. The driveway light glowed behind her, throwing Lauren's shadow long across the concrete. The grocery bag rested against Marjorie's hip, warm bread pressing through the paper. It was such an ordinary detail that it made the threat feel even colder. If Daniel loses this promotion because of you, Lauren said, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how unstable you've become. Marjorie looked at her daughter-in-law carefully. The street was quiet. A porch light turned on across the road, but no one stepped outside. Lauren was close enough for the phone to catch every word and far enough that Marjorie could still walk away if she had to. Unstable how? Marjorie asked. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Don't play games. I'm asking what you mean. You're changing locks, running to lawyers, poyers, digging through old papers, refusing to support your own son. People will understand what that looks like. Marjorie felt the old fear stir. Not fear of Lauren exactly, but fear of being talked about. Of people whispering that grief had made her difficult, that age had made her confused, that a mother who set boundaries must have stopped loving her son. Then she remembered Evelyn's voice. Patterns matter. Marjorie kept her tone even. I changed locks after unauthorized keys were made. Lauren stepped closer. Daniel gave me those keys. Daniel doesn't own my house. The words hung between them. Lauren's mouth tightened. You keep saying that as if family means nothing. Family should mean asking before entering. Lauren gave a small, bitter laugh. You know, this is exactly why Daniel thinks you're being influenced by that lawyer. You never used to be this hard. Marjorie held her ground. No, I used to be easier to use. For the first time, Lauren had no immediate answer. A car passed slowly behind them, headlights sliding over Lauren's face. In that flash of light, Marjorie saw something she had not seen before. Not confidence. Panic. Lauren was not on the driveway to win an argument about dinner. She was there because Daniel had handed over emails, Evelyn had found the payment, and something Lauren had built was beginning to shake. Lauren lowered her voice. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand enough. No, you don't. Daniel's director is expecting a polished family heritage dinner. The columnist is interested because of the Cole name. If this falls apart, Daniel looks dishonest. Do you want that? Marjorie felt the knife in the question. Lauren had not denied that the dinner was built around the Cole name. She had admitted it. What columnist? Marjorie asked. Lauren's expression shifted, just slightly. Never mind. No, what columnist? Lauren folded her arms. A local food writer. Daniel mentioned it. She writes about restaurant culture and community dining. The kind of exposure Daniel needs. Daniels works in corporate operations. Why does he need food exposure? Because his director cares about brand storytelling. Because people promote people who know how to create experiences. Lauren's patience cracked. Because not everything is about you, Marjorie. Marjorie let the words settle. The columnist, the Cole name, brand storytelling, the $4,800 pre-fee. The dinner was not just a dinner anymore. It was a showcase, and Lauren had planned to use Marjorie's food, house, and history while keeping Marjorie out of sight. Marjorie took one step back toward her front door. Leave. Lauren's face hardened. Fine, but don't expect Daniel to forgive you when he loses this. Marjorie's voice was quiet. Daniel can decide what kind of man he wants to be. Lauren laughed once. He already chose. That hurt because in many ways it was true. Lauren turned and walked back toward the SUV. Marjorie waited until the vehicle disappeared before she stopped the recording. Then she stood alone in the driveway with the grocery bag in one arm and the evidence in her pocket. Inside, she locked the door and leaned against it. Her knees felt weak, not from age, from restraint. There were many kinds of strength, she realized. Some looked like speaking. Some looked like pressing record and staying calm while someone showed who they were. She sent the audio file to Evelyn before removing her coat. Evelyn called 20 minutes later. I listened, she said. Do not engage with Lauren alone again. I wasn't planning to. She mentioned a columnist and Daniel's director. That gives us context for motive. This dinner appears to involve professional benefit, publicity, and possibly unauthorized use of your intellectual property. Marjorie sat at the kitchen table. What happens now? I'm sending a formal notice to Daniel, Lauren, Whitaker Brand Strategy, and any event participants we can identify once we confirm names. It will state that they do not have permission to use Cole's Sunday Kitchen, your recipes, your home, or your personal story. Will that hurt Daniel? Evelyn's pause was gentle but firm. Marjorie, Daniel's choices are already hurting Daniel. Your job is not to absorb the consequences for him. Marjorie looked at the bread still in its paper bag. It had gone cool. He used to be kinder than this. He may still be, Evelyn said, but kindness without courage does not protect anyone. After the call, Marjorie made soup and ate alone. The bread was still good. The quiet was still strange. She wondered if this was what boundaries felt like at first. Not triumph, not peace, just a table with fewer people and less pretending. The next morning, Daniel texted before 8. Lauren said you recorded her. Is that true? Marjorie answered after taking a breath. She came to my driveway and threatened my reputation. I saved the conversation. His reply did not come for nearly 15 minutes. You're making everything worse. Marjorie typed, then deleted, then typed again. No, I'm documenting what is already happening. This time he did not respond. At noon, Evelyn forwarded a copy of the formal notice she had sent. The language was controlled, professional, and powerful in a way Lauren's threats were not. It did not accuse anyone of crimes. It did not demand instant punishment. It simply preserved rights, withdrew consent, and warned against unauthorized use. Marjorie read every line. For the first time, her no existed in writing beyond a text message. It had shape. It had legal weight. It stood outside her, where Lauren could not twist it into moodiness or confusion. By late afternoon, the consequences began to surface. Lauren sent no messages. Daniel made no calls. But Samuel did. I got a strange call today, he said. Marjorie sat up straighter. From who? A woman named Diane Keller. Food columnist. She said she was invited to Daniel's promotion dinner because it would feature a family recipe story connected to Cole's Sunday Kitchen. She asked whether I knew if the Cole family had authorized a revival concept. Marjorie closed her eyes. And what did you say? I said I knew you, and any real conversation about Cole's Sunday Kitchen should begin with Marjorie Cole. A warmth spread through her chest despite everything. Samuel continued. She sounded surprised. Not hostile, just surprised. What else did she say? She said Lauren's described too private to participate directly, but supportive of the concept. Marjorie's hand tightened around the phone. Too private, supportive, hidden by another word. Did you give her my number? No, I told her I'd ask you first. Respect again. It still startled her. You can give it to her, Marjorie said after a moment. But I want Evelyn copied on anything written. Smart. That evening, Diane Keller emailed Marjorie. The message was polite, almost cautious. She introduced herself, explained that she had been invited to attend Daniel's dinner, and asked if Marjorie would be willing to confirm a few details about the Cole's Sunday Kitchen legacy. Marjorie forwarded it to Evelyn, then replied with one sentence Evelyn helped her draft. Miss Keller, I am the surviving rights holder for Cole's Sunday Kitchen materials, and I have not authorized the use of my recipes, restaurant name, home, or personal history for Daniel Cole's promotion dinner. She stared at the sentence before sending it, Then she clicked send. The next morning, Daniel called. This time, she answered because Evelyn had already received the records and the notice had gone out. There was no longer a reason to pretend the conflict was private. His voice sounded different, not angry, frightened. "Mom," he said, "my director asked me about the dinner." Marjorie closed her eyes. "And?" He got an email from the columnist asking whether there was a rights issue. She said nothing. Daniel continued, words rushing now. "Lauren is furious. She says you're trying to sabotage me. My director wants to know if the family heritage story was approved or if we misrepresented it. Did you?" Silence. That silence answered enough. Finally, Daniel whispered, "I don't know anymore." Marjorie felt sadness move through her, but not the old need to rescue. "Then maybe it's time you find out." After the call ended, she stood in Thomas's office and looked at the folders spread across the desk. The dinner was still days away, but its foundation was cracking. Then an email from Evelyn arrived. Marjorie opened it. "I received a response from Whitaker Brand Strategies business address. It was not from Lauren. It appears to be from an outside contractor. They attached a project brief by mistake." Marjorie opened the attachment. At the top of the document was a title, Cole Heritage Dinner Campaign. Below it, one line was highlighted in yellow. Primary objective, secure Marjorie Cole's signature before public-facing launch. Marjorie stared at the highlighted line until the words lost their shape. Primary objective, secure Marjorie Cole's signature before public-facing launch. Not ask for permission, not invite her to participate, secure her signature. Like a missing stamp on a package Lauren had already mailed. She printed the project brief with slow, deliberate movements. The printer hummed in Thomas's office while the house sat dark around her. Page after page slid into the tray, each one adding weight to what she already knew. Lauren had not been improvising. She had a campaign, a timeline, a contractor, a payment, and a public-facing launch that depended on Marjorie signing away something she did not even know was being used. Marjorie read the rest of the brief at the desk. The language was smooth, warm, merkable. It described a multi-generational family food story, a legacy mother figure, and a modernized comfort menu positioned for professional networking. It mentioned Daniel's promotion dinner as a soft launch opportunity. It described Marjorie's role as behind-the-scenes authenticity support, behind the scenes. Even on paper, Lauren had found a way to put her in the kitchen and close the door. Marjorie photographed every page and sent the file to Evelyn. Then she placed the printout in a folder labeled Campaign Brief. Her handwriting looked firmer than she felt. The next morning, Evelyn called before Marjorie had finished her coffee. "This brief changes the picture," Evelyn said. "It shows intent to obtain your consent before broader public use. It also suggests they knew consent was needed." Marjorie sat at the kitchen table with the folder open in front of her. "So they knew they didn't have it. That may be a fair inference, but we will still be precise. It does not prove everything. It does make Lauren's earlier statements much harder to explain." Marjorie looked at the phrase behind-the-scenes authenticity support. "What do we do now?" "I'm sending a second notice, stronger this time. We'll demand that Whitaker Brand Strategy suspend any campaign materials referencing Cole's Sunday Kitchen, your recipes, or your personal history until ownership and consent are resolved." "And Daniel?" "We include him because the records list him as a supporting contact." Marjorie closed her eyes. Even now, part of her wanted Daniel removed from the hard parts. But the emails, the bank inquiry, the scanned signature, and Samuel's copy made that impossible. "Do it," she said. After the call, Marjorie opened her notebook and added the project brief to the timeline. Then she wrote one sentence beneath it, not as evidence, but as a reminder to herself. "They needed my signature because they knew my permission mattered." She stared at that line for a long time. By noon, Lauren reacted. This time she did not text, she posted. Marjorie found out when Diane Keller, the food columnist, forwarded a screenshot to her and Evelyn. Lauren had written on social media about older relatives who weaponize family traditions when they feel overlooked. She did not use Marjorie's name. She did not mention Cole's Sunday Kitchen, but anyone close enough to the situation would understand. The post was careful. That made it more dangerous. Lauren wrote about trying to honor family history, support her husband, and create a beautiful professional evening. She said some people could not handle seeing the next generation succeed. She said pride sometimes disguised itself as hurt. The comments had already started. "Poor Daniel. Family drama is the worst. Some mothers never let their sons grow up." Marjorie read until her stomach turned. Then she put the phone down. The old instinct rose fast. Defend yourself. Explain everything. Tell them about the keys, the signature, the payment, the folder, the voicemail. Make them understand. Instead, she called Evelyn. I saw it, Evelyn said. What do I do? Nothing publicly. Not yet. She's making me sound bitter. She's making herself sound nervous, Evelyn replied. There is a difference. Marjorie wanted to believe that. She was not sure she did. That afternoon, Daniel called. She let it go to voicemail, then listened. Mom, Lauren shouldn't have posted that. I told her not to. But people are asking questions now, and my director wants the dinner either clarified or canceled. I need to know what you want. Marjorie replayed the last sentence. What you want? It was the first time he had asked that. She did not call him back immediately. Instead, she wrote down what she wanted in her notebook. She wanted her name protected. She wanted her house left alone. She wanted her recipes untouched unless she chose otherwise. She wanted Daniel to stop hiding behind Lauren. She wanted the truth to be stronger than the family story Lauren had built. Only after writing those things did she respond by text. I want the promotion dinner canceled if it uses my home, my recipes, my restaurant name, or my personal history. Any other questions should go through Evelyn. Daniel replied after several minutes. If I cancel now, it will damage me at work. Marjorie read the sentence and felt sadness rather than anger. It was still about him, even now. She typed slowly. Then tell the truth before someone else has to. He did not answer. That evening, Samuel called. His voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it. Diane Keller called me again, he said. She asked whether the Sunday table had any connection to you. Marjorie sat straighter. What did you say? I said we had spoken respectfully and that nothing would move forward without your attorney reviewing it. Thank you. She also asked if you would be willing to talk on background. Not for publication yet, just so she understands what's real. Marjorie looked toward Thomas's office. The folders waited there, neat and heavy. I don't know. You don't owe anyone your story, Samuel said. But if Lauren is telling one version publicly, silence may not protect you forever. That was what frightened Marjorie most. Silence had protected everyone except her. The next morning, Evelyn agreed to join a short call with Diane. Marjorie sat in Thomas's office while Evelyn explained that Marjorie had not authorized any public campaign, dinner concept, recipe uses, or brand revival. Diane listened carefully and asked precise questions. She did not pry into family pain. She asked about consent, ownership, and the difference between inspiration and permission. At the end, Diane said something that stayed with Marjorie. I was invited to this dinner because I was told it celebrated a living family legacy. If the living person behind that legacy wasn't invited to the table, that matters. Marjorie closed her eyes. Someone outside the family had understood in one sentence what Daniel had missed for years. Later that day, Lauren's post began to shift. A few comments questioned her phrasing. One person asked why the relative was not being named. Another asked if the person who created the traditions had actually agreed to the event. Lauren did not respond. Then Diane posted a short public note of her own. She did not mention Marjorie by name. She simply wrote that when writing about family food traditions, consent and credit mattered, especially when older women's labor had shaped those traditions for decades. The comments under Lauren's post slowed, then changed. Interesting timing. This sounds like there's another side. Who exactly is being honored if they aren't included? Marjorie watched from the kitchen table, not with satisfaction, but with a strange ache. She did not want Lauren destroyed by strangers. She wanted Lauren to stop building herself on pieces of other people. At 6 o'clock, Daniel appeared at her door again. He knocked once and stepped back. Marjorie opened it but did not invite him in right away. His face looked pale. I canceled the dinner. For a moment, Marjorie could not speak. Daniel looked down. My director said it was better to pause than risk questions about misrepresentation. Lauren is furious. Marjorie opened the door wider. And you? He gave a small, empty laugh. I don't know what I am. In the kitchen, Daniel sat with his hands clasped tightly. Lauren says you forced this. No, Marjorie said. I refused to be used in it. He nodded slowly, but his eyes were troubled. After I canceled, she said she had other materials ready, posts, photos. A family story packet. She said the campaign didn't need the dinner. Marjorie's body went cold. What photos? Daniel looked at her, ashamed again. Some from your house, your kitchen, old restaurant menus, recipe cards. Marjorie gripped the edge of the table. Daniel, she said carefully, how did she get photos of my recipe cards? He did not answer at first. Then he whispered, she said she took them while helping after your surgery. Marjorie did not sit down. She stood at the kitchen table with both hands pressed against the wood, staring at Daniel as his words settled between them. She said she took them while helping after your surgery. For a few seconds, the house seemed to hold its breath. Then the memories returned in broken pieces. Lauren standing by the counter with Marjorie's wooden recipe box open. Lauren offering to digitize the cards, Lauren saying paper gets lost. Lauren moving through the house while Marjorie slept in the recliner, with pain medication blurring the edges of the day. Marjorie's voice came out lower than she expected. She photographed my recipe cards while I was recovering. Daniel looked miserable. That's what she said. And you knew? No, he answered quickly, then looked down. Not then. Not then, Marjorie repeated. When did you know? He rubbed his forehead. Tonight. After I canceled the dinner, she got angry. She said the campaign could still work because she had enough visuals and story material. I asked what she meant. She showed me a folder on her laptop. Marjorie pulled out the chair and sat because her knee suddenly felt unsteady. What folder? Daniel swallowed. Coal assets. The words were so sterile they almost hurt more than an insult. Assets. Not memories, not recipes, not Thomas's handwriting. Assets. Marjorie reached for her notebook and wrote the phrase down. Coal assets folder on Lauren's laptop. Daniel watched her write, shame deepening in his face. Mom, I didn't know she had taken photos from your house, but you knew she wanted to use them. I knew she wanted to build a concept around the family story. My story, Marjorie said. He nodded slowly, yes. It was the first time he had said it plainly. That did not erase anything, but it changed the air. Marjorie looked at him for a long moment. I need you to write down exactly what you saw. Daniel stiffened. Now? Yes. Now Lauren will Daniel. He stopped. Marjorie slid a legal pad across the table. You came here and told me she had photos of my kitchen menus and recipe cards. If you leave without writing it down, tomorrow you may decide it sounded less serious, or Lauren may convince you that you misunderstood. I am done letting important things disappear into conversations. For a moment he looked hurt, then he picked up the pen. His hand moved slowly at first, then faster. Marjorie did not hover. She went to the counter, made tea, and gave herself the dignity of turning her back while her son wrote a statement against his own comfort. When he finished, the page contained short, careful sentences. He had seen a folder labeled Coal Assets. It contained photographs of Marjorie's kitchen, old restaurant menus, handwritten recipe cards, and a scanned image of Thomas and Marjorie standing outside Cole's Sunday kitchen as adults on opening week. Lauren had said she had enough material to proceed with a digital campaign, even without the dinner. Daniel had not given permission for the photographs to be taken, but he had known Lauren was creating promotional materials. He signed and dated the bottom. Then he placed the pen down as if it weighed more than it should. Marjorie made a copy on the scanner in Thomas's office before he left the house. Daniel watched from the hallway. His face was pale, his silence heavy. When the machine finished, she returned the original to him. Keep that, she said. You may need to remember what you told the truth about. He looked at the page in his hand. I don't know what happens when I go home. Marjorie's heart ached despite everything. Neither do I. Do you hate me? The question came so quietly it nearly broke her. No, she said, but I don't trust you right now. His eyes reddened. He nodded once, then left without another word. After the door closed, Marjorie sent the scanned statement to Evelyn. Then she sat in the kitchen and listened to the old house settle around her. This was what it cost, she realized. Not revenge, not triumph. Just the painful work of choosing truth when love had become tangled with fear. Evelyn called the next morning. This is important, she said. Daniel's written statement supports unauthorized access to your materials. Can we stop Lauren from using them? We can demand she stop. If she has already shared anything with contractors, we can demand removal and preservation of records. But we need to move quickly. Marjorie looked toward the wooden recipe box now locked in Thomas's file cabinet. Do it. I'll send a cease and desist today. I also want you to consider whether we should formally document concerns about possible elder financial exploitation. I'm not saying we file anything public yet, but we should prepare. The words made Marjorie's stomach tighten. Elder financial exploitation. She had heard phrases like that on the news and imagined people far more vulnerable than herself. People tricked by strangers. People unable to pay their bills because someone had drained their account. She had not imagined it could look like a daughter-in-law photographing recipe cards and a son asking about power of attorney. I don't want to destroy Daniel, Marjorie said. Protecting yourself is not destroying him, Evelyn replied. If Daniel cooperates, that matters. If he doesn't, that matters too. By noon, the cease and desist went out. It named Lauren Whitaker Brand Strategy, Daniel, and any contractors working on the Cole Heritage Dinner campaign. It demanded that they stop using images, recipes, stories, menus, or marks connected to Cole's Sunday kitchen and preserve all related files. Marjorie read the final copy slowly. Each sentence was plain. Each sentence did what she had failed to do for years. It said no without apologizing. At 3, Diane Keller emailed. Marjorie, I wanted you to know I will not be attending Daniel's event in any professional capacity. I'm uncomfortable with the lack of clarity around consent. Separately, I would like to speak with you sometime about the history of Cole's Sunday Kitchen. Only if and when you are ready. Marjorie read the email twice. The columnist had stepped away. Not because Marjorie begged, not because she caused the scene, because facts had reached the right person. She forwarded it to Evelyn, then sat back in Thomas's chair and let herself breathe. The relief lasted until sunset. Lauren posted again. This time she was less careful. Marjorie saw it because 3 people sent her screenshots within 5 minutes. The post showed a close-up photograph of a handwritten recipe card. Marjorie recognized it immediately. Peach cobbler. Thomas's note was visible in the corner. M likes crust thicker. Lauren's caption read, "Some family traditions are too beautiful to be locked away by bitterness." Marjorie stared at the image. It was not just a recipe. It was Thomas's handwriting. A private note between husband and wife, posted for strangers by a woman who had called the food outdated and embarrassing. For several seconds, Marjorie could not move. Then something in her became very still. She took a screenshot, then another, capturing the comments, the timestamp, Lauren's profile name, and the visible recipe card. She forwarded everything to Evelyn with one line. She posted Thomas's handwriting. Evelyn called almost immediately. "Marjorie, I need you not to respond publicly yet." "I won't." "We have the cease and desist timestamp." Her post came after notice was sent. "That matters." Marjorie looked at the screen again. People were already commenting under Lauren's post. "Beautiful. So nostalgic. You should make a cookbook." Some even asked whether the recipe would be shared. A cookbook. Marjorie's grief sharpened into something cleaner. "No more warnings," she said. Evelyn was quiet. "What are you asking me to do?" "Whatever is appropriate. Formal demand. Takedown request. Notice to the platform. Notice to her contractor. I want it documented that she used my property after being told not to." "We can do that." "And Evelyn?" "Yes?" Marjorie looked at Thomas's note on the stolen photograph. "I'm ready to talk to Diane Keller. Not online, not emotionally, properly." Evelyn's voice softened. "I'll arrange it." After hanging up, Marjorie walked into the kitchen and opened the drawer where she kept fresh index cards. For years, she had copied recipes for other people when they asked kindly. She had always believed sharing food was love, but love required permission. So did legacy. She took one blank card and wrote at the top in steady blue ink, "Recipes I will not give away." The next morning, Daniel appeared at her door before 9, breathless and pale. "Mom," he said. Lauren took the post down. Marjorie looked at him through the storm door. "Good." He shook his head. "No, that's not why I'm here." He held up his phone with a shaking hand. She didn't just have photos. "I found a contract draft on her laptop last night." Marjorie's grip tightened on the door handle. Daniel swallowed. "It says after the campaign clinch, the recipe brand would be transferred into Whitaker Brand's strategy for management." Marjorie felt the blood drain from her face. For a second, she thought she had misheard him. Then she looked at Daniel's expression and knew she had not. "Transferred?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "That's the word they used." "They?" "Lauren and the branding consultant." Marjorie opened the storm door and stepped aside. Daniel entered the house carrying his phone like evidence he was afraid might disappear. In Thomas's office, he pulled up several photographs he had taken before leaving Lauren's laptop. The images were imperfect. One was blurry, another captured only half a page, but together they revealed enough. The draft agreement referenced a future recipe platform, merchandise opportunities, digital content rights, and brand management services. Marjorie's eyes stopped on a sentence near the bottom. "Operational control shall be assigned to Whitaker Brand Strategy for a minimum term of 5 years." She looked up. "Operational control of what?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know." "No." Her voice hardened. "You do know." He swallowed. "Of the recipe brand." The room went silent. Marjorie turned back to the screen. There it was. Not a dinner, not a promotion celebration, not a tribute, a business plan, a real one. She took photographs of every image on Daniel's phone with her own device. Then she emailed them to Evelyn and saved copies to an external drive in Thomas's desk. Daniel watched her work. No hesitation, no tears, no pleading, just documentation. Something shifted in his eyes as he watched his mother move with calm efficiency. For years, Lauren had described Marjorie as emotional, stubborn, unable to adapt. But this woman was none of those things. This woman was building a case. An hour later, Evelyn joined them by video call. The attorney reviewed the photographs carefully. "This is still a draft," she said, "but it establishes intent." Marjorie nodded. "To transfer something they didn't own." "Potentially," Evelyn replied. Daniel lowered his head. Evelyn continued. "What concerns me is timing." This document appears connected to the campaign materials, the photographs, and the signature request. The power of attorney, Marjorie said quietly. Evelyn looked at her through the screen. Yes. Daniel closed his eyes. For months, he had insisted those conversations were separate. Now even he could see the pattern forming. Not one action, many, small pieces, each one leading toward the same destination. Control. After the call ended, Daniel remained in the office. He looked exhausted. When did she start planning all this? Marjorie answered honestly. I don't know. The answer seemed to hurt him more than an accusation. He sat in Thomas's chair and stared at the floor. I thought she wanted recognition. Marjorie said nothing. I thought she wanted something she could build herself. Still nothing. Daniel laughed bitterly. Maybe I never wanted to know the difference. That was the closest he had come to admitting the truth. Not that he had been fooled, that he had chosen not to look. The next day brought another surprise. Evelyn called early. I received a response from Whitaker Brand Strategy. Marjorie straightened immediately. What did they say? The consultant claims Lauren represented herself as having authority to move forward. Marjorie's grip tightened on the phone. And they're nervous. For the first time in weeks, Marjorie felt the balance shift. Not dramatically, not enough to end anything, but enough. What happened? She asked. The consultant reviewed our documentation request and apparently realized there are ownership questions they were never told about. Daniel had not been lying. Lauren had told people she could deliver rights she did not possess. Maybe she had believed she would eventually get them. Maybe she had never intended to ask. Either possibility frightened Marjorie. What are they doing now? They suspended active development pending clarification. Marjorie closed her eyes. One door had finally slammed shut, yet the relief did not last. An hour later, Daniel called. His voice sounded strange. Mom, what is it? I went home. Something in his tone made her stand. And Lauren wasn't there. Marjorie waited. She packed a suitcase. A cold feeling settled into her stomach. Did she leave? I don't know. Did she take anything? Daniel was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel, the office filing cabinet is empty. Marjorie's heart skipped. What filing cabinet? The one where she kept campaign materials. What was inside? I don't know everything. That answer was true but incomplete. She could hear it. What else? More silence. Then she kept copies of documents. Marjorie felt her pulse quicken. What documents? I don't know. Daniel, his voice dropped. I saw copies of your signature. The room seemed to tilt. Marjorie sat down slowly. How many copies? I don't know. Were they from checks? Some? Anything else? I think letters. The words landed heavily. Letters, not one signature. Multiple samples. Collected, stored, used. The possibility Evelyn had been carefully avoiding suddenly felt much closer. Not proof, not yet, but close, very close. Did you photograph any of it? Marjorie asked. No. Why not? His answer came immediately. Because at the time I thought it was normal. Marjorie closed her eyes. Of course he had. That was how all of this had happened. One excuse at a time, one overlooked detail at a time, one decision not to question something uncomfortable. When the call ended, Marjorie immediately documented everything he had said. Date, time, exact wording. Then she emailed the notes to Evelyn. No memory would be trusted anymore. Only records, only evidence. That evening, Diane Keller arrived at the house, not for an interview. Not yet, just coffee. Marjorie had agreed because she wanted one conversation untouched by manipulation. They sat at the kitchen table for nearly 2 hours. Diane listened more than she spoke. She asked about the restaurant, Thomas, the recipes, the years after it closed, the women who had worked there, the customers who came every Sunday. Not once did she ask how much money the brand could make. Not once. For the first time in months, Marjorie felt someone was interested in the truth rather than the product. When Diane finally left, she paused at the door. There's something you should know. Marjorie looked up. What? Diane hesitated. 3 months ago, Lauren contacted me. Marjorie froze. 3 months? Yes, that was before the promotion dinner. Diane nodded. Much earlier, a chill ran through Marjorie. What did she want? She pitched a feature story. Marjorie stared at her. A feature story about what? About reviving a forgotten culinary legacy. The words sounded rehearsed. Because they were. Lauren had been rehearsing this for months, maybe longer. Diane continued carefully. She presented herself as the person leading the revival effort. Marjorie felt something inside her settle. Not break. Settle. Like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. How much did she tell you? Not much. Enough to interest me. Not enough to convince me. Did she mention me? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. How? Diane's expression darkened. She described you as elderly, private, and no longer interested in managing your legacy. Marjorie looked away, not because it hurt, because it explained too much. The signature requests, the power of attorney conversations. the photographs, the campaign, the dinner, the contract. Every step depended on the same assumption that eventually Marjorie would be treated as a retired obstacle rather than the owner of her own life. Diane reached into her purse. I almost forgot. She handed over a folded sheet of paper. What is this? A copy of the original pitch summary Lauren emailed me. Marjorie unfolded it slowly. At the bottom sat Lauren's signature block. Above it was a sentence highlighted by Diane. Marjorie read it once, then again. Her hand tightened around the page. The sentence wasn't describing a future plan. It was describing something already underway. And according to Lauren's own words, the transition of control over the Cole Legacy project had begun months before anyone ever asked Marjorie for permission. Marjorie sat at the kitchen table long after Diane left. The highlighted sentence remained in front of her. Transition of control was already underway. Not proposed, not discussed, not hoped for. Underway. The distinction mattered. Lauren had not been waiting for permission. She had been acting as if permission already existed. Marjorie scanned the document immediately and sent copies to Evelyn. Then she placed the original in a folder with the consultant contract photographs, Daniel's written statement, and the notes from her conversations. The folder was growing heavier. So was the truth. An hour later, Evelyn called. I read it. And? There's something interesting. Marjorie listened carefully. The wording suggests Lauren was describing an active project to third parties months ago. But according to everything you've shown me, she had no documented authority at that point. Marjorie stared at the page. So she lied, possibly. The attorney paused. Or she believed authority was coming. The second possibility disturbed Marjorie more, because it suggested planning, expectation, confidence, the confidence of someone who thought ownership could eventually be obtained. Can she do anything with this? Marjorie asked. Not legally without actual rights. Then why does this feel so dangerous? Evelyn's voice softened. Because people sometimes build facts on the ground. They move forward, make agreements, create expectations, and hope the paperwork catches up later. Marjorie understood immediately. By the time she discovered what was happening, Lauren intended for the machine to already be moving. Investors interested, consultants hired, articles drafted, partnerships discussed. Enough momentum to pressure Marjorie into surrendering, not through force, through exhaustion. The realization made her stomach tighten. After ending the call, she opened her laptop and began checking records again. This time she focused on dates, interview requests, emails, photographs, social media posts, the promotional campaign. The timeline stretched across her dining table, and gradually a pattern emerged. The first public references to reviving the Cole recipes had appeared shortly after Lauren attended a regional food industry conference nearly 8 months earlier. Marjorie remembered the event. Lauren had described it as networking, nothing more. Now she wondered what conversations had happened there. Who had Lauren met? What promises had she made? What story had she told? Before she could think further, her phone rang. Daniel, his voice sounded strained. Mom, can I come over? Of course. He arrived 40 minutes later. He looked worse than she had ever seen him. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes were red, and for the first time he seemed genuinely afraid. Marjorie poured coffee without speaking. Daniel accepted the cup and sat down. I found something. Her heartbeat quickened. What? He placed a folded paper on the table. A storage unit agreement. Marjorie frowned. A storage unit? Daniel nodded. Lauren rented it 6 months ago. 6 months! Long before the dinner. Long before the signature quests. Long before any of the explanations she had been given. Did you know about it? No. The answer came instantly. What's stored there? I don't know. Marjorie stared at him. You haven't checked? I only found the paperwork this morning. The rental agreement was in Lauren's name. The monthly payments came from a business account Marjorie had never heard of. That caught her attention immediately. What account? Daniel looked embarrassed. I don't know. You don't know? It isn't one of our household accounts. A silence fell. Then Marjorie asked the question neither of them wanted to hear. How many accounts did she have? Daniel rubbed his forehead. I thought I knew. That was not an answer, and they both knew it. For years he had trusted Lauren to manage finances, bills, budgets, business expenses, taxes. Now every unknown account felt like another locked door, another place secrets could hide. Marjorie photographed the storage agreement and sent it to Evelyn. Then she looked directly at her son. Daniel, he raised his eyes. If I learn you've hidden something to protect her, I won't continue this conversation. The words hurt him. She could see it, but she said them anyway. Healthy boundaries sometimes arrived years too late. I understand, he said quietly. No. Marjorie held his gaze. I need to know that you understand. He nodded. This time she believed him. at least partly. That evening, Daniel left to investigate the storage facility. Marjorie remained home, waiting, documenting, preparing. She backed up every piece of evidence again. Cloud storage, external drive, printed copies. The process calmed her. Evidence could disappear, phones could break, accounts could be deleted, but multiple copies survived. She was done trusting luck. Around 9 o'clock, another email arrived. From Diane. Subject line, additional material. Marjorie opened it immediately. Attached were screenshots from Lauren's original pitch correspondence. Several appeared ordinary. Then Marjorie found one that made her stop breathing for a moment. It was an email from Lauren to a potential media contact. One sentence stood out. We are currently finalizing authority documentation and expect full control to be formalized shortly. Marjorie read it twice, then 3 times. Authority documentation. Formalized shortly. Not ownership already obtained. Ownership expected. Someone had been working towards something specific, something not yet completed. She forwarded the email to Evelyn. Within minutes, her attorney responded. Do not contact Lauren. Save everything. Marjorie had no intention of contacting her. Not anymore. The next morning brought another development. Daniel called before sunrise. Mom, his voice was shaking. What happened? I went to the storage unit. Marjorie stood immediately. And there are boxes. What kind of boxes? Files. A long pause followed. Daniel. There are hundreds of pages. Marjorie closed her eyes. What pages? I don't know yet. Did you open them? Yes. His breathing sounded uneven. What did you find? When he answered, his voice dropped almost to a whisper. Copies of restaurant records. Marjorie frowned. That's not illegal. I know. Then what? More silence. Then there are folders with your name. Her pulse accelerated. How many? Several. What's inside? I haven't gone through everything. That answer frustrated her, but she could hear the shock in his voice. He was not withholding information. He was overwhelmed. What else? A lot of paperwork. What kind? Old contracts, recipe notes, financial records. Marjorie leaned against the counter. Years of family history, stored in secret, hidden from both of them. Anything recent? Daniel hesitated. The hesitation frightened her. Daniel, there's a separate box. What box? It's labeled transition. The word struck like a physical blow. The same word. Transition. The same language from the pitch documents. The same language from the emails. The same language from the consultant materials. Not an accident. A system. A project. A plan. What's inside the box? Marjorie asked. Daniel exhaled slowly. I only opened the top folder. And? The silence stretched. Long enough for her imagination to become dangerous. Finally, he spoke. There's a draft document. What document? I don't know exactly. Read the title. Paper rustled on the other end of the line. Then Daniel went completely silent. Daniel. No answer. Daniel. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded hollow. Mom. Her hand tightened around the phone. What is it? I think this document was created almost a year ago. Marjorie felt cold. A year? Yes. That's before all of this, I know. What's the title? Another pause. Then Daniel read the words, Succession and Transfer Preparation Plan. The kitchen seemed to disappear around her. Not because the mystery had been solved, because it hadn't. The document existed, the planning existed, and according to the date on the cover page, someone had started preparing to transfer control of Marjorie's legacy nearly a year before anyone ever asked for her consent. Marjorie heard the words and went completely still. Succession and Transfer Preparation Plan. The title sounded formal, almost harmless, but she knew by then that harmless language could hide very serious intentions. A dinner could become a campaign, a family story could become a business asset, a mother could become a signature line. Daniel, she said carefully, do not remove anything from that storage unit yet. I know. No, listen to me. Do not take papers. Do not throw anything away. Do not let Lauren know what you found if she doesn't already know. She knows the unit exists, Daniel said. It's in her name. Then leave now. There was a pause. Mom, there are boxes here with your medical paperwork too. Marjorie's hand tightened around the phone. What kind of medical paperwork? Copies of post-surgery forms, insurance scans, appointment summaries. Her mouth went dry. Those were the papers Daniel had supposedly helped her organize because she was tired and in pain. Those were the papers Lauren had stood beside while Marjorie tried to focus through medication and swelling and exhaustion. Photograph the labels, Marjorie said. Only the labels and the first pages visible. Then leave. I can do that. And Daniel? Yeah? Send everything to Evelyn before you send it to me. For a moment, he was quiet. Then he said, You don't trust me with it. Marjorie closed her eyes. I trust records more than people right now. He did not argue. 20 minutes later, Evelyn called. Her voice had the sharp control Marjorie had come to recognize. I received Daniel's photographs, she said. This storage unit is important. We need to handle this properly. What did you see? Labels, transition, signature samples, medical scans, coal assets, campaign materials. There is also a folder labeled residential options. Marjorie sat down hard in Thomas's chair. Residential options? Yes, we don't know what is inside yet. But given the context, we need to preserve the unit. Marjorie stared at the desk. Thomas's old pen cup sat in the corner, filled with pens that no longer wrote. She remembered Lauren's threat about people questioning whether Marjorie could manage her own affairs. She remembered the bank inquiry about power of attorney. She remembered the tag on the key. House access until transfer. Evelyn, she said, were they trying to move me out of my own house? I will not say that until we see the documents, Evelyn replied. But you should prepare yourself. The words landed gently, but they still hurt. By noon, Evelyn had contacted Daniel with instructions. He was to send written confirmation of what he had seen, preserve the storage unit, and not remove or alter anything without legal guidance. He agreed. That mattered, but it did not comfort Marjorie as much as she wanted it to. At 1 o'clock, Lauren called. Marjorie did not answer. Lauren called again. Then a text appeared. Tell Daniel to stop acting like your spy. Marjorie saved it. Another text followed. You are destroying his marriage. Marjorie saved that too. Then came the third. You have no idea what Thomas would have wanted. The phone in Marjorie's hand seemed to grow heavier. That was the line Lauren should not have crossed. Thomas had written what he wanted. In letters, in agreements, in warnings, he had left more truth in a safe deposit box than Lauren had spoken in years. Marjorie forwarded the message to Evelyn and then turned the phone face down. For the first time in her life, she did not feel the need to defend Thomas to someone who had never respected him. The next day, Evelyn arranged a meeting at her office with Marjorie and Daniel. Lauren was not invited. Daniel arrived alone, carrying the look of a man who had slept very little. He placed a printed statement on Evelyn's desk and sat with his hands clasped tightly between his knees. I didn't know about the storage unit until I found the agreement, he said. Evelyn nodded. Your statement says the unit contains documents related to your mother's business legacy, medical paperwork, signature samples, and possible transfer planning. Daniel swallowed. Yes. Did you participate in creating any plan to transfer control of Cole's Sunday kitchen materials into Whitaker Brand's strategy? No, Marjorie watched his face. This time the answer sounded different. Not defensive, clear. Did you provide Lauren with access to your mother's medical forms or signature scans? Daniel closed his eyes briefly. I provided files during Mom's recovery. I did not understand they would be used that way. That was not my question, Evelyn said. Daniel opened his eyes. Yes, he said quietly. I gave Lauren access to the files. Marjorie looked down at her hands. There it was. The truth had not arrived as a confession shouted across a room. It arrived in a lawyer's office, spoken in a tired voice by a son who had finally stopped decorating his choices. Evelyn continued. Did your mother authorize you or Lauren to use her signature for any brand inquiry? No. Did she authorize any transfer of recipe rights, trade name rights, or brand management? No. Did she authorize use of her medical condition to support claims that she could not manage her affairs? Daniel's face tightened with pain. No. Evelyn wrote something down. Marjorie felt no satisfaction. Only the heavy sadness of hearing how many no's should have existed before anyone asked a lawyer. After the meeting, Daniel followed Marjorie to the parking lot. The air was cold enough to sting her face. Mom, he said. She stopped but did not turn immediately. I'm sorry. She faced him then. He looked smaller than he had in years. Not physically, morally, as if the truth had stripped away the excuses he had been wearing. I know you are, she said. Is it too late? Marjorie's chest tightened. For what? For me to fix this. She thought carefully before answering. You cannot fix what Lauren did by being sorry. You can only stop helping her do more. He nodded, and this time he did not argue. That evening, the real collision came. Lauren arrived at Marjorie's house just after 7. She rang the bell 3 times, then pounded once with the flat of her hand. Marjorie did not open the door. She turned on the porch light, opened her phone camera, and stood inside the hallway. Marjorie, Lauren called. Open the door. No, Marjorie said through the closed door. You don't get to hide behind lawyers forever. I'm not hiding. I'm refusing to be alone with you. A sharp laugh came from the porch. You've turned my husband against me. No, you left him evidence. The silence outside was immediate. Then Lauren's voice dropped. You think you've won because you found some folders? Marjorie felt her pulse quicken, but her voice stayed calm. I think you should leave. Lauren stepped closer to the glass. Her face appeared in the narrow window beside the door, pale and furious. You have no idea how much work I put into making that old restaurant matter again. Marjorie stared at her. There it was. The clearest truth Lauren had ever spoken. making it matter again, as if Cole's Sunday kitchen had stopped mattering because Lauren had not yet found a way to profit from it. It already mattered, Marjorie said. Lauren's eyes flashed. To who? A few old customers? A dead man? You were sitting on something valuable and doing nothing with it. Marjorie recorded every word. My work was not yours to take. I was going to make it bigger. You were going to erase me from it. Lauren's mouth tightened. You erased yourself. You shut down. You got old. You let everything rot in boxes. The words cut, but not as deeply as they once would have. Marjorie had spent too many nights with Thomas's letters and her own records to believe Lauren's version of her life. No, Marjorie said. I protected it by surviving. For a second, Lauren seemed thrown by that answer. Then her face hardened again. Fine, keep your little recipes. But don't think this ends with everyone admiring you. Daniel's career is damaged. My business is damaged. People will know why. They will, Marjorie said, because this time they'll know the truth. Lauren stepped back as if the word truth had struck her. At that moment, a car pulled into the driveway. Daniel. He got out quickly and walked toward the porch. Lauren, stop. She spun toward him. You followed me? Yes, you pathetic coward. Daniel flinched, but he did not retreat. Marjorie watched from behind the locked door, phone still recording. Her son stood between his wife and his mother's front porch, not with confidence, but with effort. Sometimes courage began badly, sometimes it shook. Daniel's voice was quiet. You need to leave. Lauren stared at him. After everything I did for you? No, Daniel said, after everything you did to her. The porch went silent. Marjorie felt tears burn behind her eyes. Lauren looked at him as if he had slapped her. You're choosing her. Daniel shook his head. I'm choosing to stop lying. For the first time since Marjorie had known her, Lauren had nothing ready to say. Then Daniel lifted his phone. I found the transition folder, he said, all of it. Lauren's face changed. Daniel looked at the locked door, then back at his wife. And I found the residential options folder. Marjorie's breath caught. Lauren whispered Daniel. He looked sick as he said the next words. There was a draft letter in there, Mom. It said your house would be easier to manage if you moved into assisted living after the brand transfer. Marjorie did not open the door after Daniel said it. She stood behind the glass, phone still recording, while Lauren's face went pale and Daniel stared at the porch floor as if the words had come out of someone else's mouth. A draft letter, assisted living, after the brand transfer. For months, Lauren had mocked Marjorie's cooking, used her home, questioned her stability, and chased her signature. Now the shape of the plan was clear enough that even Daniel could no longer look away. The target had never been only recipes, it had been control. Control of the Cole name, control of the story, control of Marjorie's house, and eventually control of how the world saw her. Lauren whispered Daniel's name again, but he shook his head. No, he said. Not this time. Marjorie unlocked the door only after Lauren stepped back from the porch. She did not invite either of them inside. She stood in the doorway wrapped in her robe, steady enough to face them both. Daniel, she said, send that document to Evelyn now. Lauren snapped, you don't have the right. Marjorie looked at her. You lost the right to tell me what belongs to me. Daniel sent the photographs while standing on the porch. Lauren turned away, arms crossed, but she did not leave until the upload finished. There was no dramatic confession, no apology, no collapse. Just the ugly silence of a person realizing the paper trail was stronger than her version of events. The following weeks did not resolve everything at once. Real consequences rarely arrived like thunder. They came through emails, meetings, certified letters, and carefully worded agreements. Evelyn reviewed the storage unit materials with Daniel present and documented the folders. Medical scans, signature samples, campaign briefs, brand transfer drafts, residential options, and copies of Marjorie's private recipe cards. The questionable authorization was sent for review. The storage unit was preserved. Whitaker Brand's strategy received a formal demand to stop all use of coal-related materials and account for payments received. The outside contractor withdrew from the project. Diane Keller declined the feature Lauren had wanted and later published a restrained column about the importance of consent when family food traditions became commercial stories. She did not name Lauren. She did not need to. People in that circle understood enough. Lauren's consulting opportunity disappeared. The $4,800 pre-fee became part of a settlement discussion, not because Marjorie wanted public revenge, but because Evelyn insisted that money taken against unauthorized use of the Cole legacy had to be addressed. Lauren kept her freedom and her life, but she lost the thing she valued most in that season, control of the narrative. Daniel's workplace did not fire him overnight. That would have been too simple. His director placed the promotion on hold and required a review of the misleading event materials. Daniel had to explain, in writing, how a professional dinner had become tied to a family ownership dispute. It was humiliating. It was also earned. He began seeing a therapist 2 weeks later. He told Marjorie that himself, not as a performance but quietly, during a phone call where he did not ask her for anything. He also hired his own attorney to separate himself from Lauren's business matters and to understand what exposure his careless emails had created. One afternoon, he came to Marjorie's house and knocked like a guest. She let him in. They sat at the kitchen table where so many painful things had been said. "I was afraid of conflict," Daniel admitted. "That's the truth. I told myself I was keeping peace, but I was really choosing the person who made the most noise." Marjorie looked at her son for a long moment. The apology mattered. The clarity mattered more. "You let me carry the cost," she said. "I know. Knowing now does not erase it. I know that too." There was no instant reunion, no warm Sunday dinner that made everything whole. Marjorie did not offer chicken pot pie. She offered coffee, and only because she wanted to. Daniel accepted it with both hands. A month later, Marjorie revised her estate plan with Evelyn. She did not cut Daniel out in anger. She did something harder and wiser. She placed the house, the Coles' Sunday kitchen rights, and future income from recipes into a trust with clear conditions, independent oversight, and protections against pressure or unauthorized transfers. Daniel could benefit one day, but he could not control it. Lauren could not touch it. When Marjorie signed those papers, her hand was steady. "This is not punishment," Evelyn said. "No," Marjorie replied. "It's protection." The Sunday table opened quietly at first. Samuel had insisted she move at her own pace. Marjorie became culinary partner and minority co-owner through a written agreement Evelyn reviewed line by line. Her recipes were not taken. They were licensed with consent, credit, and limits. Thomas's name appeared on the menu only where Marjorie approved it. On opening night, Marjorie stood in the kitchen wearing a white apron over a blue blouse. The room smelled of butter, roasted chicken, and fresh pastry. Outside, adults filled every table. Some were old customers of Cole's Sunday Kitchen. Some had only heard the story from Diane's column. They came for comfort food, but they stayed because the room felt honest. A server stepped into the kitchen and called, "3 chicken pot pies, 2 cobblers, and another biscuit basket." Marjorie smiled. Not because the orders proved Lauren wrong. Lauren no longer had that kind of power. Marjorie smiled because the food was leaving the kitchen under her name, by her choice, with her permission. Near closing, Daniel arrived alone. He did not bring Lauren. He stood near the host stand until Samuel guided him back. Marjorie saw him from the kitchen doorway. He looked nervous, but he did not hide from it. "I'm proud of you," he said. The words reached her softly. Years ago, she might have clung to them like a lifeline. Now she received them as a gift, not a rescue. "Thank you," she said. He glanced toward the kitchen. "I don't expect you to cook for me." "That's good," Marjorie said, "because I won't cook to earn love anymore." His eyes filled. He nodded. "I understand." Maybe he did. Maybe he was beginning to. That was all Marjorie could allow for now. Lauren never came to the Sunday table. She sent one email through her attorney months later, agreeing to remove all remaining Cole materials from her files and to make a partial repayment as part of the settlement. There was no heartfelt apology attached. Marjorie did not wait for one. Some people only understood consequences, and she had finally stopped needing them to understand her pain. On the last night of that first month, after the final table left, Marjorie stood alone near the kitchen pass. Samuel was in the office. The staff were cleaning. The lights were low, and the air still carried the warmth of pastry and herbs. She thought about the woman she had been when Lauren pushed that casserole dish away. The woman who had mistaken endurance for love. The woman who had allowed silence to become a home for disrespect. That woman had not disappeared. She had simply learned to stand up. Marjorie never cooked another meal for Lauren. Not out of hate, out of respect for herself. She kept her house, she kept her name, she kept Thomas's notes private where they belonged. And when she cooked now, it was no longer proof that she deserved a place at someone else's table. It was proof she had chosen her own. If you were in Marjorie's place, would you forgive Daniel but keep firm boundaries? And can family still mean the same thing after trust has been broken?